Go Pizza presents SCP. The Steve Dangle Podcast with your hosts, Steve Dangle and Adam Wilde.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, a member of the athletic staff has joined us.
Wow.
How about that, eh?
How about that? And he's also a pretty good guy. Scott Wheeler. Scott Wheeler coming on to talk about...
I appreciate it.
We have so much to pick your brain about, Scott. But first, I want to know what you think about Barry Trotz walking away from Washington. I have to know.
News breaking before the show.
Yeah, thank God.
Ooh.
I don't know. That's tough. He's been through a lot in his career. I mean, he basically has the run of it now, so he can do whatever he wants. But walking away from a Stanley Cup champion is definitely a new move. I'm all for it. I'm all for whatever he wants. And I mean,
I was
for it.
I was sort of surprised that when they actually released his salary at like 1.5 million.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, it was supposed to go up to like 1. If he won the cup, he got an automatic extension, which was I think 1.8, something like that. It was like really, it wasn't.
But
much.
he could probably get so much more.
Well,
in the
he
open market.
wants
oh,
5.
no question.
Yeah, he wants 5 over 5, and I mean I would too.
The details were Barry Trotz, this is from Pierre LeBrun.
There we
Barry
go.
Trotz had a clause in his contract where if he won the Stanley Cup, he could accept a 2-year extension with a $300K bump in salary. Obviously, since he was only making $1.5 million, low by today's NHL standards, a $1.8 million salary doesn't cut it, so Trotz stepped down.
Babs ruined everything for the owners, eh?
Sure did. He sure did. Well, and
It's always about the Leafs. Don't you ever forget it. Love it. Love it. Making it difficult.
But so the question now is, are teams like, because who's looking? I mean, Minnesota maybe,
Rangers.
Islanders for sure.
Are the Islanders going to step to the plate for $5 million a season?
And does Barry even want to go there?
Yeah, I mean, I would wait until after the Tavares stuff.
Well, and
If you're Barry, right?
he might be waiting to see. Like, if Barry Trotz does sign with the Islanders for whatever reason, that's got to be a little bit more appealing for JT. Mm-hmm. You would think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I liked because you said like when was the last time that ever happened or whatever. I saw Andrew Berkshire, who's going to be joining the show a little bit later on.
Oh yes, he has some stuff to say about some things.
He tweeted the same thing, and the answer is Iron Mike Keenan in 1994, and he just kind of goes, "Ooh, not
good.
exactly the kind of guy you want to follow in the footsteps of." But I will point out that Stanley Cup champion and Gagarin Cup champion Mike Keenan to you.
That's right.
Only coach to do both. Only coach to...
Important facts only you know that have no relevance to today's show, but we're so happy that you brought them.
We're going to go through the full list of the top 50 Russian players this episode, right? Is that what we're doing?
No, that's exactly what we're doing.
Can I don't know if you heard that, Scott, but Steve brought this list from Igor Ivanko,
Yes.
and it was like the top 50 Russian players, and I think Nikita Zaitsev was at 14 and Kovalchuk's at 17.
Wow.
Kovalchuk at 17. So I said to Steve, I'm like, I think that happened because he's trying to get some, publicity for this list, right? Because that would make people upset. And Jesse rightly pointed out, who the fuck cares? And he might have a good point.
And I answered, me.
Yes,
I think
the
this
Steve
is
Dangles of the
based on,
world
like,
care.
And so
them.
Yeah, it was sort of shocking how many people came to your defense, though.
Oh,
Shocking.
It was just a compelling thing that people seem to enjoy.
See, you know why it wasn't as good? Scott doesn't know about it.
I did not know about it.
You didn't see that?
But I will say this. Zaitsev played really, really well at the Worlds.
Hey,
It was like entering into an alternate universe. Maybe it's the bigger ice, maybe it's the role he played, but it looked like night and day.
So, getting away from bums like Barry Trotz and really, who cares? Stanley Cup champion winning coach. Let's talk about second pairing Leaf defenseman.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, one thing I've said on the show for a while is every year of Babcock's coaching tenure with the Leafs, he seems to pick a player, and that player is his project for that year, and he kind of puts him through the ringer. In year one, it was definitely Kadri. Mm-hmm. He just murdered him. 2 years ago, it
Worked out pretty well.
Worked out pretty well. 2 years ago, it was Riley, whose offense tanked, but it ended up working really well. Took him off the power play and whatever. And last year, I couldn't help but think from the beginning of the season that it was Nikita Zaitsev.
Yeah, there were moments when I felt like it was Nylander, just with how tough he was on him.
Mm-hmm. Maybe he's got several
at times.
But yeah, Zaitsev definitely played a different role. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with the power play, too. They took Zaitsev off of the power play, tanked his numbers, so...
He's not putting up any points. Well, yeah.
Well, and he also has a concussion, and he got sick, and he had a baby, and all those other things that can go into derailing a career. But from what, and I'm not suggesting kids derail careers. I'm just saying he probably didn't sleep as well.
How could you say that?
I know it's going to be taken out of context and tweeted at me a million times. How, from what you saw at the World, Scott, is it him getting his game back? Is it him being more comfortable? Is it a role that suits him better? What do you think what was it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, he is the guy on that Russian team. He was counted on to be their number one, if not number two, maybe a number two. But he played huge minutes, played on the power play, a lot of offensive zone starts. Babcock almost never deployed him in the offensive zone this year. So I think it was just a combination. And then maybe the open ice, but he's not the kind of guy who carries the puck a ton. We saw those grenades as far as outlet passes this year because he didn't look like he was comfortable to skate the puck out of the zone. Mm-hmm. So I really don't know what it was, but it was like an alternate reality. So we'll see what that sort of brings in camp next year. But they need him to be good. Even if Morgan Rielly takes a step back next year as far as that defense goes, if they don't upgrade.
No.
Oh my God.
We talked about it it's a good point that he's potentially a project, but Rielly wasn't very good 2 years ago.
No.
He was pretty pedestrian. And then he comes out, and this year, he was phenomenal, but
I thought he was fantastic.
They have to get that Morgan Rielly next year. They could be in trouble.
I thought the biggest sign of respect you could give Morgan Rielly happened in Game 3 of this series between the Leafs and Bruins, where Marchand intentionally took him off the ice with coincidental minors. I was like, well, he's clearly the Leafs guy.
Of respect there.
Yeah, and it was a smart move. If you're going to take a Leafs player off the ice and you're trying to score on him, why not Morgan Rielly? That or Freddie Anderson, just going to him with Tom Sestito. But they didn't have him, did they?
No, they didn't. They didn't.
Did the Bruins lack grit? My call.
So maybe the Leafs took Freddie Anderson off the ice by playing him.
Yeah, maybe they did.
So we'll start there, and we do have to get to the. I want to get. There's so much we want to cover, Scott. Obviously, we want to talk about the Leafs. We want to talk about the Marlies. We want to talk about the draft. But when we start, I guess we'll start with the playoffs.
Yeah.
We'll start with round one, the round that matters, really.
Yes.
The round
who cares?
Everybody remembers.
Who cares about the last three malarkey rounds? Who cares?
Boston, and Mike Babcock said it in a piece today with Pierre LeBrun on The Athletic, that Boston won with one line against the Leafs.
Oh, no question.
And then lost with that one line the next series, and quite convincingly so after game one. What did you see from the Leafs in that? Are we all crazy to be as hard as we are on guys like Roman Polak? There was a certain segment of Leafs Nation that was upset with the way Austin Matthews performed, and maybe the results weren't there. I don't know whether the performance was or not, because those are two different things, right? And what did you? Yeah,
Jake Gardiner. I was going to say.
And Jake Gardiner.
You can't talk about that series without talking about Gardiner.
Especially Game 7 Gardiner.
And I was talking to someone else about that yesterday. He did himself no favors.
No.
For how divided Jake Gardiner has made this fan base, that game was about as ugly as it gets. It kind of reminded me of Liljegren the first time we saw him in Toronto at rookie tournament this year, where he just went out and he looked like a disaster.
And cost him the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Preseason game,
preseason rookie tournament game at that. But different stage with Game 7. But Gardiner that was a huge factor. But I thought he'd been pretty okay the rest of the series. It was kind of blown out of proportion that he'd been sort of a negative influence for the rest of the series. But obviously Matthews wasn't good enough. But again, Matthews is always getting his in terms of shots, so it seems weird to kind of sort of fault him when the puck luck doesn't go his way.
When post too,
he led the team by a wide
shot, and we don't know how hurt he was or banged up he was or what was happening with the shoulder. So it's tough there. But when your best player is Zach Hyman for most of the series, you're probably not going to come out on top. And Babs talked about, with Pierre about sort of the four lines, and you need to have four stellar lines, and that's why Boston didn't go all the way. But if Boston did come out on Tampa, there's no doubt that they could have gone all the way. I think the game is trending that way for sure, just as far as talent and stacking talent at the top of your lineup, which Babs hasn't fully committed to. But star players now are more important than they've ever been. Depth is becoming increasingly less important. So, we'll see next year whether Matthews gets his wish and gets to play with Marner a bit more, and that's a real thing. They really I've heard a few quotes and that sort of thing. How adamant? Yeah, I think they're best friends off the ice. You talk to them in the room; they spend all their time away from the rink together. They want to play together. I think it would work. How could it not work? But then it just creates that ripple effect, right? Tavares might change that if that ever happens. But
what a great problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing, though. The Leafs, they have this fantastic group of talented individuals up front. It seemed, though, for part of the season and even last year, before the Capitals series, there were guys playing that shouldn't have been playing. And and they started to kind of come out of the lineup towards the end of this season. So I mean, it was and again, no disrespect to Matt Martin, but it seemed like they had the depth, better depth than what he offered. And no disrespect to Leo Komarov, but he might have been injured, or it might just be a decline in play, or just better players around him. But I couldn't see how you could hold an Andreas Janssen or a Kasperi Kapanen out of the lineup in place, to have Leo in there, and they didn't.
And it seems like there's just a switch with Babs as far as those kinds of decisions. I'll never forget with the Martin choice to take him out of the lineup in particular. I tweeted literally the day before someone asked me, do you think Matt Martin ever comes out of the lineup this year, or is it going to have to wait till down the line? I said, no, there's no way.
That's what did it.
Yeah. Babs will not take Matt.
They took it as a dare on one of his burners, man.
Yeah, he won't. I just didn't think it would happen. And then suddenly he comes out and then he never comes back in. He just decided he's not good enough. That's it. That's all. And I think he made that decision with Dominic Moore extremely early on, that Moore wasn't going to be his guy.
Yeah, out of
Josh
camp.
Levo is not going to be his guy. Next year, Levo's not going to get into the lineup. He'll find someone else. He'll find a Carl Grundstrom. They'll sign someone in free agency. He just doesn't see Josh Levo as someone who can skate on the fourth line or play higher in the lineup. So it's just, he's stubborn until he isn't, and then suddenly he's going the other direction, right? So, and I think Anderson's the biggest thing for them as far as moving forward in Babs and his sort of push. I mean, we could talk about Garret Sparks a little bit later, but I think Babs feels that he can't play McElhinney more than the back-to-backs, and that's going to create a problem every season come playoffs because Anderson looked burned out this year.
Absolutely.
No, let's talk about that now, because Garret Sparks was a big part of the Marlies winning the Calder Cup, which you covered, and I went to a few of the games, but I was drinking. So it's a little bit different. Maybe you watched it closer.
And importantly, when it really mattered, Game 6 to Game 7, which we were at both of them, he rebounded. He came out big in Game 7. That was a terrible performance in Game 6, and he'd probably be the first guy to admit it. But then Game 7, he comes out and he's the star that we've seen all year.
And just speaking of Babs, how bad would it have been if the two nights that Babs was in the building for the playoffs, the first was Game 6, if he didn't respond in Game 7, that's going to be in the back of Babcock's mind, and he cares about that stuff. He cares about those viewings that he gets. He thinks he can judge these guys quickly, that kind of thing. And Babs never came to the Marlies this year. I mean, I talked to him about it at the Calgary game earlier in the season when they were at the ACC, and he basically said, I can't. I haven't had time. I think I saw him at maybe one or two games all year, and normally the ACC games because he's already there because the Leafs are playing afterwards. So that would have been really damaging for Sparks after what was undoubtedly one of the best seasons we've seen in the last decade as far as AHL goalies go, to come out Game 7 and not play well again. And if they lose, or even if they win, he doesn't play well, and that kind of lingers. But he's done it all year. I mean, there were two low points for Sparks in these playoffs. There was the first round against Utica. They lost back-to-back games in Utica to come back here for a decisive Game 5.
Yeah,
and he was garbage. And it would have been respectable if Keefe went back to Pickard.
Can you imagine if they had lost in the first round?
Right. And it almost happened. They needed Andreas Janssen and Travis Dermott back for that Game 5. I mean, that Utica team was legit. They had a ton of players back from the Canucks, and they were scary. By far the best team the Marlies played in the playoffs. And we're having a completely different conversation if they get eliminated. And then he goes back to Sparks, shutout. And then the other low point was Sparks in that Calder Cup final in Game 6. And he came back and probably should have had a shutout if...
He did! The puck didn't go in! That was so bizarre. It was my
first question to him after the game, because I know he's so proud, and he's going to say, it's the Calder Cup, we won, it doesn't matter. But his first answer was, no, that was not in the net. And
it wasn't!
He wanted the record set straight, even though it was 6-1, and it should have been 6-0.
Have we talked about that since? Have we done a show since?
Mentioned it too much.
Oh, that was brutal.
For those of you who haven't seen it, go watch the replay of Game 7. The puck doesn't go in.
Watch the whole game. We won't tell you where it is.
They say there's another angle.
It's in the third period.
It's in the third period,
yeah.
Right. Yes.
There couldn't... Well, okay.
The AHL said there was an angle that and maybe got tucked in on the other side at the far post, but... Yeah.
The Marlies had several angles.
They show the one angle to the fans where it is clearly not in the net. And the refs were like, you might as well write it off after that.
Let's go, Marlies. Ref, you suck! Let's go.
They were booing them as they exited the ice. The fans had just won the Calder Cup. The refs are leaving the ice. and the fans just had to give it to them one last time.
I was like hugging someone or whatever because it was just pandemonium after that, and I hear all these boos. I'm like, what happened? What's going on?
So is Garret Sparks the real deal?
As far as an NHL backup, I think he would be an upgrade on McElhinney. I think you could trust him to play more.
Could you trust him to play 30 games? Because with McElhinney got 18, right?
I think
with McElhinney, I'd go by starts. Right. So I think it was 15.
The thing with Sparks is that he swims a lot, so he's got to make a ton of those recovery saves. Mm-hmm. But McElhinney's the exact same way, and Babcock is okay with that. Yeah. McElhinney swims as much as anyone, but Sparks doesn't. He's trying to work on that, and it's improved, but he still swims a lot. And you've seen all the highlight reel saves. He has to make normally once a game, maybe every 2 games. He's got to make some ridiculous save, and you're not going to make that save in the NHL because the guys are going to bury on you. But I have no question he could be a good NHL backup. There's probably teams where he could step in. There's a number of teams around the league that have pretty mediocre goaltending where he could probably step in and contend for the starting job. The other thing, though, is Babcock doesn't like weird people. And I was talking to Jonas about this the other day.
Really?
Babcock likes McElhinney because McElhinney can just do his thing. He doesn't bother anyone. Sparks is a fantastic goalie, but he's also just really weird, and there's a relationship that has to be managed there. Okay. And it took Sparks and Keefe a long time to figure that out. And I know from talking to several people that they didn't used to sort of be on the same terms, and then Keefe kind of figured Sparks out. But Sparks is a guy who rides the highs and the lows a lot. He would want to play. He wouldn't be satisfied just playing the back-to-backs. And I just don't think Babcock has the headspace to really want to manage that. I think he sees McElhinney as just this easy option.
So if that's the case, Sparks' value's at an all-time high right now. You got teams like Carolina that are looking for guys like him. I'm just bringing up Carolina as an example. I'm sure Arizona could use a backup. I'm sure there's other teams, as you said, that he could contend for a starter on. But what trade value does he have? Does it make more sense for a guy like Calvin Pickard, who has been a successful backup, or at least somewhat successful backup? Do you go get your assets now for him, and then you go with Calvin Pickard / Curtis McElhinney, whoever earns it out of camp, go from there?
Right. It's tough because I don't think Dubas is ready to give up on Sparks. They've invested 5 years into him. Even if he does have trade value and they might risk losing him to waivers, I think there's going to be a real dynamic there as far as potentially trying to keep him. You would probably sneak McElhinney through waivers. If Sparks comes up and doesn't play well in his first few starts, you may be able to bring McElhinney back up, whereas you can't do that with Sparks. If Sparks goes on waivers, he's going to get claimed. It's not going to happen again. But I just feel like there's going to be a time when Kyle just says, we've invested 5 years into this kid. Why do we want to give him away for a 5th or a 6th round
and
pick,
that's what
right?
it would be, right? Like,
I don't think...
And he was a 7th himself, I think.
Yeah, he was. But he hasn't proven anything. The teams know that the Leafs have lost leverage because they will have to put him on waivers if they can't trade him. So it puts you into that kind of Calvin Pickard situation in Vegas where he just didn't have a lot of value, although Pickard cleared waivers, which I don't think would happen with Sparks.
No, and I think it's interesting that you said you think McElhinney would clear waivers because after the season he had, even though he played so little, I don't think he would.
Maybe
I think
not.
someone would take a chance.
Maybe not. He's 35, 36 now too?
35.
And cheap.
Yeah.
I think.
And definitely
super cheap.
And it's only one more year.
Did his job.
He played
Coach
well.
is like boring, like you just said.
Yeah, he played well. Respect to McElhinney because I said from day one that was going to turn out ugly with a 34 or 35-year-old on a 2-year deal who's never played consistently well, but he was good last year.
Mm-hmm. That was, I still have a soft spot for those goalies. Like, dude, Dominic Hasek was extremely fun to watch because you never knew what was going to happen. And then Tim Thomas was, how the hell did he stop the pucks that he stopped?
Yeah.
Jonathan Quick is the same way. And to a lesser, or to a different extent, I guess, like James Reimer too. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Ugly style, and I loved it. And every game he would go out and he was money in the bank for like a 9-2-5.
But if you can...
For a while,
for sure. Listen, James Reimer was always underrated in Toronto, and I think they gave him away for too little at the end of the day. Like,
you think?
He might have been a great backup goalie had they signed him.
They got the captain of their Calder Cup winning team, Ben Smith, out of that deal.
There you go.
And then got him back off waivers.
With Sparks, though, if you think that Mike Babcock, because Mike Babcock doesn't seem like he's got a lot of time for BS on any level.
No.
If that's the dynamic, is he not part of it? Because I'm assuming the Leafs are looking at trade options right now, although I can't imagine that they're all that big. Is he a piece that teams are interested in as a part of a bigger package, not flipping him for a 5th round?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, a team like Carolina, they need all the goaltending depth they could get. He certainly becomes more interesting when he's in some kind of a package. The Leafs obviously have depth at the wing now as well. But again, I mean, people always ask me, do you think they should move one of their wingers? Do you really want to move an Andreas Johnsson at this point? I mean, his value's peaked. Should they have maybe moved Connor Brown when his value peaked? Is he ever going to be that kind of a player? But I mean, guys sort of ebb and flow, and value comes and goes. And I think a guy like Johnsson in a package with Sparks or something like that is a scary game to play after how good both of them were. And, I mean, you don't want them ending up on another team and becoming Ricard Raquel and Chris Gibson.
Now, part of me, so where did that report come from that Edmonton had interest in Sparks? Did you see that on Twitter this week?
No, I
haven't seen that.
So I saw it. It might just be some random rumor website, but let's just say it's real for the sake. Like, could you do the little kid thing, reach into your pockets and just crash onto the counter? What can I get for this many? Like a package of Sparks, and I'm going to say it. I'm ashamed that I'm going to say
Stop it.
Josh Levo.
Oh,
buddy, just what can I get for this many?
I mean, if Edmonton's interested in Nolan Vesey, they might be interested in both of those players too.
Bro,
that was to get anything for Nolan Vesey. Yeah, it was a.
How did that happen?
I have questions over whether he would even be like a contributing AHL forward. So
like a Kyle Bond, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's exactly how I imagine him. And Kyle Bond had bigger numbers in college than Vesey did. So
oh my god,
give Tommy a 7th round pick and let him go swimming in Sweden and see what happens.
And do we know anything about that condition yet? Because when Edmonton signed him.
Yeah, that was the condition. So it's a 7th now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was a sign.
2-year deal too.
Bro,
Yeah.
that's terrible.
Yeah, what's interesting is that he's a guy that from all the metrics that I've seen and my limited understanding of them, but he's a little too old to
no question.
expect huge gains out of him, right?
Yeah. I routinely do rankings of the Leafs prospects, and he was a kid who was, I believe, either dead last or second last on every ranking I've done for the last 2 or 3 years. So that means you're like below players who they didn't sign, like Keaton Middleton and Vladimir Bobliev. And I mean, he was a mediocre top 6 forward in NCAA.
I'm trying to think if he ever even made it onto my prospect pyramid videos that I did. I don't think he ever did.
I don't think so.
I think he was at the bottom rung was everybody else because I didn't want to waste time ranking them.
Yeah.
I think he was in everybody else.
Well,
I don't remember writing that name down.
The only reason I knew the Leafs had him was because of Jimmy.
The whole Jimmy VC
Yeah, and I was
thing.
like, they got his brother and his dad. Well, he's definitely coming to Toronto for sure. That was what I thought. Wrong. But
Dakota Joshua is another one who's a little bit older, but actually intrigues me a little bit. So he's an interesting player, and he's a center. And I think the Leafs might walk away from guys like the GOAT this summer. So they're going to need depth on the Marlies at center.
So let's walk away.
Well, not qualify him.
Wow.
Interesting.
I mean, if at this point he's not going to be an NHLer, is Kyle really going to invest an AHL contract slot when he could tinker with some kind of experiment instead on a guy who's basically a third liner in the AHL?
So that's interesting to me because, this is now the fun job that he gets to do, right? We look at him as, this hardcore numbers guy, but like one thing is that team loves him, don't they? Isn't Freddie like the most popular guy on that team or one of them?
One of them.
Yeah.
And Keefe really likes him. But like, what is he at this point? There comes a time when you plateau, and then it is what it is at that point. I mean, what he has going for him is they've got Chris Mueller and Miro Aaltonen signed for next year. Lindholm might be coming down, but otherwise they don't have
signed.
Well, do they have? Yeah, they do.
I think he's an RFA.
Is he?
Let's check that. That was the one thing I thought that he was. I'm going to look it up where Jesse will probably be faster.
Lindholm's definitely signed. I'm glad you said Mueller because even though he's older, he's intrigued me.
Lindholm could end up back down there. I don't think he has to clear waivers either.
Altonen's an RFA.
Right.
25.
Chances are he comes back though.
Yeah,
right?
chances are. So that means you've got maybe 3 centers there. Adam Brooks is a 4th.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Where do you put him in?
You need depth, but Brooks needs to play higher in the lineup to figure out what he is.
No
you
question.
can't waste trying to find out what he is on a guy like Gauthier, I don't think.
This team was so stacked. Like, they couldn't find ice for Jeremy Bracco.
He had 14 points in his last 11 regular season games,
And then you cut
and he
him.
was a healthy scratch. He scored their first goal of the playoffs against Utica, too.
That's amazing.
And he was a healthy scratch.
They just
And
wouldn't
he
play him.
didn't even smell the ice for 2 months.
Do we see Callie Rosen or Andreas Borgman up next year?
Rosen was so pedestrian in the first half that I didn't think they had anything there. And he was far and away their best defenseman for the second half. So I don't know. That could be interesting. Problem is, he obviously plays the left side, and they look
got
like
some
they've
depth
got
there.
that sorted out. But Rosen was unreal, like just top to bottom, really good on the power play. He can actually shoot. Marlies and the Leafs don't have any defenseman who can shoot.
He's got a dart.
Yeah, like Morgan Riley doesn't know what a slap shot is.
Mm.
Jake Gardiner, Jake has a decent shot when he uses it. He can step into it.
It's like almost never, but yeah.
Dermott doesn't shoot. Liljegren doesn't have a good shot, so there's value there.
Who on the Leafs does have a slap shot? Like,
No one uses them that much,
really,
right?
yeah.
But
there's
like,
no Ovechkin bomb. Like, there's no forward with like a cannon that I can imagine.
Josh Levo has a really good shot, but even that's not he doesn't step into it and wind up kind of thing,
Also, he never plays.
right?
So
Issue.
there's that.
Carl Grunstrom can rip it, but he doesn't take slap shots either.
right. And so
Oh, they got guys who can shoot, but like slap shot.
well, because Borgman, it's funny at the beginning of the season, he looked like the better guy.
Borgman's actually a guy who has a good slap shot.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
not surprised with the muscles like that. He's quite big.
That guy's an absolute animal.
He's a professional wrestler. All the pictures of the like locker room celebration, he doesn't have a shirt on. I'm like, yeah, okay, Babcock must love this guy. It must have pained him so much to send him down.
The interesting thing with Borgman is he got injured at almost the right time because it could have been a bad scene if he was. I think there's a good chance he could have been a healthy scratch in the playoffs.
Really?
Like he was really bad when he got sent down. I don't know whether it was just adjusting and finding a role and that kind of thing, but he wasn't very good when he got sent down. And then, I mean, you're not going to take out Justin Holl, Martin Marinson, Callie Rosen, Vincent Loverty, Travis Dermott when he came back. So it's either him or Liljegren, basically. And are you really going to play Andreas Borgman over Liljegren in the playoffs when they made it clear that they really needed Liljegren in the lineup for his development?
and he was good too.
Yeah, and Liljegren, I mean,
Justified
he was good. He kind of played a sheltered role, particularly in the last 2 rounds, but he was fine.
I've seen 2 takes on him, and they're both extreme. I've seen Luke Fox's article at sportsnet.ca mentions that it probably will be 2 more seasons for him, and that's okay. We should be patient.
Wow.
And then guys like Stephen Birch online who are saying, no, he should get the Travis Dermott treatment next season, bring him up mid-season. He should probably actually start with the team. He's ready. Where are you on that? Because you see him all the time.
I think he's at least a year away.
Okay.
He just wasn't dominant. He was fine, and that's incredible as the youngest defenseman in the league. He played well, played on the power play all year. They gifted him the power play, though. Like, Andrew Nielsen was better than him on the power play. Kelly Rosen was better than him on the power play. Travis Dermott is more effective than him on the power play. And he was a staple on the pretty mediocre power play all year, just because I think they wanted him to get that experience, which is fine. He's a much better defender than people give him credit, but he's a much weaker skater than he was sort of made out to be at the draft. He was supposed to be this fluid. He's got some problems with his stride. And then he wasn't aggressive enough. He gets a lot of his shots blocked. He's kind of lackadaisical with his movement at the point. He doesn't jump up into the play. The biggest thing for him is just those 3-zone outlet passes that he makes where you're just like, holy shit, this guy is
Just firing bombs down the ice?
just like
Cabaret bombs, yeah.
through 4 legs to a guy in transition for a breakaway kind of thing.
Right.
But there's a lot of work that needs to be done particularly on his skating.
Well, it looks like Sheldon Keefe's going to stick around, right? Like that
Sounds like it.
God,
I mean,
I hope
unless he
so.
goes to the island, there's no availabilities right
Washington.
now. Right,
Well,
Washington opened up.
As of yesterday, or this weekend, didn't you say that nobody called? Or didn't Dubas say that nobody called?
Yeah, Kyle said that they haven't had anyone reach out. That may change with Washington, but does a Stanley Cup team want a rookie coach?
That'd be like such an awkward conversation. Keefe just walks into that locker room. Oh, look at us. Just a bunch of champions. Hello, peers. Hello, fellow peers. Guy, we're the same, you and I.
Hello, fellow kids.
The exact same.
Yeah.
You brought up a really good point there where Liljegren was kind of gifted power play time, because I saw a lot of people get super down on Andrew Nielsen, and granted, he's probably falling down the depth chart, but like that was his bread and butter.
Oh, yeah.
And he had it taken away from him. Oh, look, he hasn't scored this year.
And
Again.
Nielsen was legitimately fantastic on the power play last year. One of the better threats in the entire league. Another guy who actually has a shot, which Liljegren hasn't sort of figured out yet. I'll say this. Nielsen was unreal in both of the games he played in the final, and he hadn't played in 2 months. He hadn't played since the second round in that Syracuse. Came in cold for Dermott twice and played really well.
Unreal as in gets a shot in camp next year at the big club?
No.
Okay.
Nielsen?
He's just not. He's just never.
No. His skating is the biggest issue for him. He's probably, of the 6 or 7 guys that they played regularly this year, probably the worst skater of the bunch. And
that's a problem.
I mean, yeah, that's always going to be a problem.
So
and he takes a lot of penalties, like 100 PIMs a year kind of guy.
Oh, that's not good. No, we don't need another guy like that. So,
Well, that's a bit of a problem with Dermott, too.
yeah.
Wasn't it?
Dermott, it was what they was sort of a give and take with him, because Dermott glues himself to people off the rush, just plays a ridiculously tight gap, and then trips up a lot of guys because he's right in their grill and his stick's in their feet, that kind of thing. Nielsen just takes retaliatory penalties.
Right. But the other word you had in there was dominant. And just because, like, Liljegren might be dominant one day, he just isn't now. And the one guy... And Dermott was very good in the playoffs and dominant at times, but the guy who I thought was almost always dominant, like straight up too good for the league, like definitively, was Janssen.
Yeah.
He's far too good for the AHL.
No question. He was too good in that stretch he had right before the All-Star break. They named him to the All-Star team after Kapanen went up. He should have been on the All-Star team from the beginning, but they have that thing where they like to have players from every team kind of thing. But they named Janssen that week, and then he went right from the All-Star game basically to the Leafs afterwards. And the week before that, I think he had something, it was like 12 points in 3 games or something like that. And it was just like, okay.
You're beyond this now.
Yeah, it's over. And then when he came back, he picked up right where he left off. I don't think Miro Aaltonen and Carl Grundstrom are the most talented guys to be playing on a first line with, and he just carried them.
Is that the Leafs' 4th line next year?
If it is, it's going to be hard to be a better team than they were this year, I think.
Okay.
Aaltonen's issue is that he does a lot of really good things, but he's horrible on draws. Always has been. He was like a 42% guy in the KHL. Ooh. We don't have the numbers for the AHL, but he was not relied upon to take defensive zone draws and that kind of thing. So that means
he's
Babcock's probably going to fall out of love with him pretty quickly, even if he makes it out of camp. God. And then I don't think Grundstrom's ready. I think Grundstrom needs more time.
Okay. And
Janssen, for sure. If Janssen's on the 4th line, chances are it's going to be a pretty decent line. But I think he has a good chance of being their 3rd left wing. I mean, they have Marleau, Hyman. Those are really the only guys ahead of him.
Is he skilled enough? And everybody's thing is to take Zach Hyman off of Austin Matthews' line. Right. So forgive me for doing that again, but because I happen to like him there. But
he was unreal in the playoffs too.
He sure was,
very good,
and he is. And so I wonder, is Andreas Janssen a guy that is? He might play a different style, but is he a little bit more of a skilled version of Zach Hyman? And does it benefit him to be further up the lineup?
Definitely. I definitely think he's more talented offensively than Hyman. I think if you left Hyman in the AHL, he was never going to put up 21 points in a 15-game stretch, let alone however many Janssen had, 70-something this year. He can contribute offensively. I think Hyman showed that, especially in the playoffs. But there's no question Janssen gives more offensively. And I think what Babcock will grow to love about Janssen is that he's a lot like Hyman in that you don't have to worry about him defensively. He forechecks, he wins battles. Janssen's another guy who actually takes a surprising number of penalties, though.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I noticed that, actually.
He started to get a little bit of a chip on his shoulder in the AHL this year, and he took a lot of minor penalties. But he certainly gives you a two-way presence on a line, balances it out, which Babs loves to have on his lines. Mm-hmm. And then I think he can probably give you a little bit more offense than Hyman, but I mean, if they stick him with Kadri, it's not like it's not going to work with him.
No,
either,
exactly.
Right? So,
and that would be amazing too.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see
where
what
does
they do.
Kasperi Kapanen fit in next year? Because we're forgetting that, he was there too, and he played in the AHL and could have gone back. They, decided the World Championships were better.
Right.
Probably. And I think probably they were.
Well, they gave someone else the time to
experience.
develop. Like, wasn't Moore? Who was playing on the fourth line right? Was that
Marchment
Marchment or
and
Moore?
Moore were the two wingers on the fourth line, so and
both those
was
guys were
playing
great.
really well. Marchment was, especially in that second round series against Syracuse, Marchment was a huge difference maker for them. So
Yeah, or you could put Kapanen in there to toy with everybody. Experience he doesn't necessarily need.
right. And they'd already added Grundstrom and Engvall late in the season as well.
Yep. Or you can send him to the World Championship, and he's making guys like Patrick Kane look dumb.
Right.
Yeah. No, that was the right decision.
Where does he play in the lineup next year, do you think?
That's tough because I think Kapanen is the kind of guy who could thrive higher in the lineup just because of his skating, but he's not a super talented guy. He can wheel, and he's probably the best skater in the organization.
Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, Jansson's up there.
At least
Nylander's, yeah. Nylander's a great skater as well. But it just seems like he's the kind of guy who's going to just become like a penalty killer and a fourth line speed presence for Babcock, which is fine.
You need him.
Yeah,
you need
which is
those guys.
absolutely fine. But I do think
couple breakaways on the penalty kill too.
he could probably, Johnsson, Matthews, Kapanen would be a ton of fun as an experiment. Something like that would be a lot of fun. And they've played together successfully too. So Johnsson and Kapanen, that is.
That'd be great fun. Well, I mean, I cannot imagine that Austin Matthews would enjoy that a little bit too. Like, I think that he would love to have that kind of speed going up his wing.
Has Austin Matthews ever been the slowest player on the line in his career?
Oh God, yeah,
You might be
right
on that one. That's
no
crazy.
kidding.
That's crazy.
And yeah, so because he just seems like Kapanen seems like a guy you can put in a lot of different places, which we know like Mike Babcock likes. Another guy on the team that it seemed from the outset, and I will stick to this till the day I die. I feel like Connor Brown got a bad rap last year because he played 5-on-5 with the two worst 5-on-5 players on the team most of the season, and it felt like he was trying to make up for the fact that Bozak and JVR are not defensive players ever at all, and that seemed like the least effective line that they had.
Absolutely. I think you'll see things balance out a lot more once that line leaves. I think the biggest impact is obviously going to be on the power play where JVR is an absolute monster.
Yes, yeah.
But with Connor Brown, I mean, it just seems like he fell into a numbers game where once they added Kapanen and Johnsson late in the year in particular, they just had a lot of guys that were similar in terms of the ways that you can use them. And I mean, credit to Keefe for turning Kapanen into a penalty killer because he was never that before he arrived with the Marlies. And now they had several penalty kill options. It almost makes another reason why Komarov's kind of expendable. I mean, you've got Hyman. The issue is going to be with who takes draws on the two penalty kill units next year, I think. Because
Do you hate Komarov coming back as a centerman?
I think Komarov's the kind of guy who will be available in August. And at that point, Babcock's going to really be tempted to throw $1 million at him because he likes him.
Thought.
Don't you just see him as the kind of guy who will wait in free agency as far as, like, nobody's going to pay Komarov after the year that he just had?
No, but I see him as the sort of guy who would have no problem going back to the KHL.
Right.
So, like, I'd have a hard time believing he would sign, like, $1 million deal to maybe play, may or may not
Doesn't
play.
he have to go back to the KHL then? I mean, I just don't think any team's going to give him even close to the money that he was making, and he already wasn't making very much. And I don't love him as a fourth line center. I mean, I've seen Lindblom play a lot, and
you think Barlin Holmes? You think he's going to be good?
I think he'll be fine. I mean, I wrote a piece on him. He's the kind of guy who has offensive tools, but isn't all that gifted offensively. But I mean, played huge defensive zone minutes, wins faceoffs, penalty kills, that kind of thing. So I think he could fit in there.
And what about Igor Ozhiganov? Is that an NHL player?
I don't think so.
Oh shit!
I really don't think so. If you're a healthy scratch in the KHL playoffs, chances are of coming over and winning a spot.
Why did they do it then?
I think because he's physical. He hits
Putin
like a
literally
truck,
ordered it
and he's a
himself.
righty. He's Roman Polak. I mean, he's a better skater than Polak.
Oh,
But he's physical. He hits a lot. He takes too many minor penalties. Has a big shot, better shot than Polak. Although Polak actually does a pretty good job of getting his shot through, surprisingly.
I love Polak's shot, and everyone makes fun of me whenever
No,
I say it. It's the one
respect.
thing about him that I like.
Yeah.
Well, and he's tough.
And he's
But
also cool. He's a nice guy.
he seems to,
One of
yeah.
the nicest guys.
Yeah.
It's
for
mostly
sure.
getting walked.
Yeah,
I don't like that he gets walked.
Yeah.
But
I don't think Igor is better than Justin Holl, for example.
And is Hole coming up? Do you think that's the guy that makes the team?
I think he'll be there right until the very end of camp. They're going to give him every opportunity. Kyle loves him. We talked about guys that the Marlies love. Justin Holl was like the locker room best friend to everyone kind of thing, and can really skate. Didn't play on the power play, but still produced offensively. I didn't like him in the playoffs. He wasn't very good in the playoffs, I didn't think.
But he had a big problem for me.
A really good regular season. And him and Marincin were asked to do a lot in the playoffs. So
They were. And you know what? I said to Steve and Jesse when we were watching, I said, man, if Martin Marincin just played like this, I'd be happy. Like, I would be so happy with him on as a fourth or a third pairing right-handed defenseman. Like him and Hainsey?
Yeah.
Sure. What the hell?
Marincin was probably the best defensive defenseman in the AHL this year.
He was outstanding when we saw him. And
No grenades.
Is it that he just doesn't have the skill set to translate at the NHL? Is it that he gets nervous? Like what is it with him?
I think it's that Babs decided that he's not his guy. I think he fits into that Josh Levo mold where he just didn't fit the need, or he wasn't. One of the things is he's a sort of a defensive defenseman, but he's not physical, right? So he has that massive long stick, but he's not like Roman Polak. He's not going to clear the front of the net, do that kind of thing, which I think Babs was looking for in someone who could play on that sort of third line role, which is why he liked Borgman, probably why he's going to like Ozhiganov. And I just don't think Marincin brings that. But Marincin never got scored against this year. Like his goal differential numbers were through the roof, first in the AHL.
Literally, just somebody that doesn't get scored on.
Yeah.
That, let the other two pairs do whatever. But, you've got the problem I see is that, it's Riley and question mark. And then it's probably going to be Gardiner Zaitsev. And then you cannot have Riley and Hainsey play together again. There's no way that they could do that unless
I think they will.
Oh, you bet there is a way. There is a way, Adam.
How is that? You cannot go into the season and expect to. I mean, they had a great regular season, but you can't expect to be much better.
No.
If Hainsey's your first pairing right-handed defenseman, he's a left-handed, and he's 38?
And you're not going to get a good right-handed defenseman on a one-year deal, which is about all they can afford. They have all this money this summer, and then it disappears. Gardiner needs to get re-signed.
Are they going to do that?
Imagine subtracting Gardiner from this defense. I mean, for all the flack that Gardiner gets, that would be a huge blow.
He's still a 50-point defenseman.
Yeah. And everybody thinks, Liljegren will just step in and be Jake Gardiner.
No.
No.
So can you take...
Gardner's like 28, man. Like he's got some experience.
Well, can you take Jake Gardiner and flip him to someone like the Canucks for like a Chris Tanev? Or Nashville for a Ryan Ellis? Or name team with defenseman on expiring deal? I know Tanev's got 2 years.
Yeah.
But, do you flip him for someone with similar experience and similar age and similar contract status that's a right-handed guy?
Maybe. I mean, I think Ryan Ellis is a much better player than Jake Gardiner, as good as Gardiner is.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't have to be one for one.
Right. It would have to
one
be
for one.
Yeah, this isn't Mark Bergevin making this deal.
It would have to be some kind of package for sure. The problem is if Gardiner posts 40 or 50 points next year, I mean, he just had his first 50-point season. If he does that again, I mean, what kind of contract are you looking at for him? You're going to be right back a year from now in the same situation. And, I mean, I think righties have more value than lefties.
Right.
A package would certainly be interesting, though. Again, the Leafs have the wingers, at least, to make something like that work.
Imagine Dubas trades Gardiner. All the number guys. We trusted you! You were supposed to be the chosen one!
Well, I wonder with him... Gardner's he is a great player, but is he what they need? And is he a guy, like we talk about, one of the things that really we talked about a lot with Dave Nonis was the lack of asset management. And if you're really going to manage your assets, a guy like Jake Gardiner with 1 year left seems like a guy that you move.
Right.
Because you're not going to be able to re-sign him. There's no way they're going to be able to afford that unless he has just a god-awful season. Like every game would have to be Game 7 for him to... for people to get people to stop believing, right? And that's not going to happen. Even if he's a 40-point defenseman, most teams don't even have that. So That's a guy that's going to get paid. Do you flip him to a team in the West? It has to be in the West. You flip him to a team in the West that has an excess of that. And I don't know if there are. I know Calgary's got a ton of defensive prospects. I don't know why they need Jake Gardiner, but it's
Winnipeg's interesting to me. They got as good a right side on D as anyone in the league, I think.
Yeah.
They also have Byfuglien.
They're in a cap crunch moving forward too, though, right?
Mm-hmm. Two teams
I don't know.
that
That's
probably help
tough.
each other out.
Just on the Hainsey point, I just wanted to circle back for that because it was stuck in my head. But I spoke to him in New Jersey. It was the second last game of the year before they came back and played Montreal.
Okay.
And I don't know if you guys remember that week, but the week leading up to that, he was playing like 30 minutes a night. And it was like, why do you have the oldest player? So someone asked him, I don't remember who it was, but it might have been Chris Johnston, who just flat out came out and said, do you wish that you were playing less right now? And he got all offended and that kind of thing. How tired did he look come
exhausted.
Playoffs?
Mm-hmm.
Like he just didn't even look like the same human.
Well, he's kind of snarly with the media anyway sometimes. Like that one time he scored, he's like, now I have to talk to you guys. I'm like,
right.
Okay, Ron.
Yeah.
Right. He's definitely snippy with the media.
Okay.
But I mean, just on Jake Gardiner, I don't know. Calgary is a team that fascinates me because I love all those kids that they have on D. Fox is great. Shillington is underrated. Anderson is the one who everyone talks about. But I mean, they have Juuso Välimäki, who they drafted last year with the pick right in front of Timothy Liljegren. All four of those guys are probably going to be top four defenders somewhere. But they also have Dougie Hamilton and company too, right? I mean, Giordano's going to move on eventually. Mm-hmm. Just age will dictate that. But Välimäki, Fox, Anderson, Shillington, all those guys are great. Mm-hmm. And everybody talks about Anderson. I don't know why. I think it's just because they view him as the best of the bunch. And whenever you're looking at a team's pool of prospects, you handpick the guy who you think is the best.
Through and you got Calgary for 1 minute, and that's the guy you're talking about, right? Yeah.
Right, absolutely. But I mean, yeah, Shillington's a guy who I love dating back to the draft. Välimäki's huge.
And who was it that released all that data today? Was it Sean Tierney?
Yes.
And he was talking
Charting
about
Hockey.
Yeah, Charting Hockey. He was talking about Nick Shore as a player who could like be the next Jonathan Marchessault, I think is what he said, which is bold. It's super bold, but he was, there's just another guy that Calgary has in the system. Like, that's just in the system.
Right.
It's crazy.
And I'm not stupid enough to think that they're just going to move.
Yes, you are.
Dougie Hamilton for a bag of pucks like everybody thinks. But I can't imagine that Jake Gardiner is an unattractive piece.
No, absolutely not. The thing with Jake though is he definitely has enemies around the league. Every year he ends up with USA Hockey. I remember with it was Dan Bylsma. When he played at a Worlds recently with Bylsma. And it was like, you look down the lineup of the defensemen that they had, and none of them could hold a candle to Jake Gardiner.
They're like university guys.
Yeah, and he just didn't play. And it's been like that a few times with USA Hockey, where an NHL coach who's been coaching against him has come in and just not been a fan of what Gardiner brings. So I think maybe that creeps into it with other organizations.
Interesting.
I think we certainly recognize at this point that he's a legitimate number 2 or number 3, that kind of thing. I mean, not that many guys can put up 50 points in a season, but
there are some
maybe his value. Yeah, maybe his value is a little bit lower league wide than we seem to think it is, at least.
Okay.
Speaking of guys who can put up 50 points in a season, Max Domi. And with that, would you like to get Andrew Berkshire on the phone? Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Whatever. We'll call him.
I just thought it was a really good / bad transition.
Absolutely. And with that, we must bring on that beautiful segue. We must pretend that we did not stop the show. Call Andrew Berkshire. He just magically appeared on our show. Andrew Berkshire, everybody. Our favorite guy. Andrew.
Hi.
Bonjour.
The other day, the Montreal Canadiens traded Alex Galchenyuk to the Arizona Coyotes for Max Domi. And the second I saw the news, I was like, I have to be the first to tell Berkshire. I have to be the first. And I was, and it was great.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because I got a text from you and Rory Boylan, who we both know as an editor at sportsnet.ca. And after I got off the phone with you, he saw your tweet. And then he texted me again. He was like, was I first? Did I beat Dangle? And I was like, no, you didn't.
So at first, you were pretty pessimistic about this deal for the Habs. And then I read the item that you wrote for sportsnet.ca, and I thought it was really, really good and really, really fair. So how do you feel about it now?
Well, I mean, in terms of like feeling, there is none because I still don't care about the team. But
but how do you feel?
But as like looking at it objectively, it's fine. It's not good asset management. It's like I said in the article, right? Like based on Galchenyuk's value right now, I feel like they probably should have still gotten more than just Domi straight up. But Domi is not as unvaluable as his stats last year would have you believe. Both players had really bad shooting years respective to their talent level. Galchenyuk is a much better shooter than Domi. What I find funny is like both sides of like who likes and who doesn't like the trade in terms of like from the Montreal perspective, because I get out a lot of that on Twitter, are like completely nuts. And like they like it or hate it for the exact wrong reasons. Like people who are super pro the trade are like, "Oh yeah, I can't wait to get rid of inconsistent Alex Galchenyuk for a guy that goes hard to the tough areas." And it's like, no man, Max Domi is a huge perimeter player. That's his game. He's a playmaker who does not get his own shots into the slot. He does not get to the front of the net except for on the power play. He's not the guy that people think he is. He's not Ty Domi. He's not his dad, who just ran around elbowing people in the head in the playoffs and stuff, but
with honor.
Yeah, sure.
It's the code, Andrew.
Yeah,
God.
But he's got that like tough streak, but he's not a net front guy, right? He's not Brendan Gallagher. He's a playmaker first and foremost, and he's actually really good at it. He was top 20 in the league last year in passes to the slot at 5-on-5, and he's quite good on the power play as well. But he doesn't have the shot that Galchenyuk has, so he's a little bit better on in other areas of the game, probably a little bit better defensively. And, he also had a little bit better line mates than Galchenyuk last year. One of the things that I didn't really get into in the article is that both players had, like, such scattered usage last year. Like, their most common line mates were, like, 140 minutes or something like that, which is extremely low in the NHL. Like, both of them never had a consistent line.
Which is great for young players, as we know.
Yeah, it's a great way to develop guys. Although at this stage, right, it's not really about development for those two guys. They kind of are what they are. But it's not a good way to create a good situation for them to thrive offensively either. So I think that the trade is kind of more even than people think, but it's still a situation where the Canadiens hurt themselves by continually running down one of their own players and then trading them at their lowest value. Like, if they would have waited till end of October, end of November, and Galchenyuk has a shooting percentage that regresses to the mean, if he shoots at 13.5% like he does the rest of his career before last year, then, you're looking at Max Domi and a second-round pick instead of just Max Domi. It's a tough one from that perspective to understand why now, but in terms of what they're looking for, I get it.
So the thing that was weird for me on this trade is that it didn't really move the needle forward in terms of where the organization is going. This is the team with a clear organizational need for centers, and they go out and get a guy who's unproven at center and then hint again, like with Jonathan Drouin, that he's going to come in and he's going to be, he could be a guy they try out. My first question is Domi a guy that you can see playing center regularly? And number two is, how badly do they wish they'd pulled the trigger on whatever they had rigged up for Matt Duchene?
I don't think Domi is a long-term solution at center, just like I don't think Drouin is. I mean, I'd have to see a lot more of Domi. Mm-hmm. I watched him a lot when he was a junior player. I can't say that I, flipped the channel on a lot to watch the Arizona Coyotes, no offense to their fans.
Neither can people in Arizona.
Man, the one time I did this season, I tuned in just because they were on the verge of finally winning their first game of the season, and they blew it in the final.
Against Montreal?
Was it against Montreal? No, they didn't win it. No,
they were on the verge, and they blew it against Philadelphia. Philly scored in the final minute and then won it in overtime, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think they won their first regulation game of the year against Montreal, in Montreal. And Montreal had a 3-0 lead or something, and they managed to lose it. And I remember just laughing my ass off because people were going nuts. And it was guys, this is what Montreal is now. Mm-hmm. They're just the record breakers. This is what they do all the time. They give opportunities to teams to just, stop failing when you come to Montreal.
Now you know what it was like to be us.
But no emotional attachment. No.
No, it's funny.
No, it's very...
He's divorced from it.
No, it's very funny to him. It's...
Listen,
you're not mad. You're not mad, nor have you ever been mad.
I was mad in June of 2016, and now there's nothing really. You can ask my wife if I get angry or anything during games, because I used to. Steve, you know me. I was like you. I would fucking flip out during games. But now, like, ask her. It doesn't move the needle at all, we'll say.
It's apathy.
You were so broken.
Yeah.
You were so broken. I was talking to the guys before the show, back when we were on the radio, and we had to do like a radio segment where we couldn't swearsies, and then the online version where we could be potty mouths. And you go through the Subban trade and you're all professional about it, and we're like 5 seconds into the online version and you go, what a dumb fucking trade.
Well, who was right there? I think I was right? If you look back 2 years in.
No, I think Shea Weber was very good until he got hurt, and that's what sunk the Habs season, and just give Marc Bergevin a chance, man.
Weren't they like 1-9 when Shea Weber was in the lineup though? Or I guess he played like 20 games. So
no,
it was like 4-17 or something.
Andrew, no, he was very good.
Andrew?
But I think go for it.
Since Claude Julien arrived in Montreal, the Canadiens have gotten rid of 6 different Russians, and now they only have 1 or 2 Russians left on their roster.
Oh.
Why does Montreal hate Russians?
Yeah, that's a thing that people started bringing up last year. Are you counting Galchenyuk as a Russian?
Yes.
And Markov.
Technically.
He's not.
Even though he's American.
He's American.
Has an accent.
His dad is Belarusian, right?
Yeah. But he plays for Russia.
No, he plays for the
No.
States.
Oh, he still plays for the
Plays for
States?
the
Yeah.
States.
Okay.
US.
Yeah.
But I know he's born in the US.
It's a weird situation because I think they obviously wanted to keep Alex Radulov, but at the same time, I don't know if I've ever talked to you guys about like what went down during that like contract negotiation between Radulov and Markov, and a lot of it I like can't really go into huge detail because.
Well, why don't you give us what you can tell us, because whether you have or not, we've already forgotten.
Yeah. So essentially, what went down was he kind of played them off of each other, and they knew it.
Oh.
And basically, there was one contract available, and he basically told them like, whoever signs first, that's who's going to be here. And they both kind of balked at that, and like you can tell based on Radulov's reaction, when he signed in Dallas, that afterwards he said that Montreal never offered him the money that Dallas did, and Bergevin said they did. That's because Bergevin offered that money in season, then cut back his ask after the season. So that money was on the table at one point. But Radulov wasn't talking contract during the season.
What
and
books
then
is
when
he
it
reading
actually
on
came down
negotiating?
to, pushing it, the offer came back. And then with Markov, this is a guy who's played for the Canadiens for like 15, 16 years. The offers were all insulting. And, he wanted 2 years. They said no, 1 year. Eventually he came down and said, okay, I'll take 1 year. And then they signed Mark Streit instead.
Oh, and that worked out really well. I think was that an early October release?
Mark Streit was going to replace Markov on the power play, and he played 2 games.
Radulov would have been such a difference maker too, just looking back at that. I mean, my biggest issue with the Max Domi trade is that Max Domi isn't going to fill the net. Even if his shooting percentages come up again, he's just not a goal scorer, and someone has to score in Montreal.
Do they
Domi's
still have
an
Byron
incredible
Fraze?
passer. Right, yeah, Byron Fraze.
They could throw him in there. Sorry.
Let him go.
Not to interrupt.
But yeah, Domi is a passer on a roster with a lot of passers. And, you touched on it off the top just as far as him playing from the outside in, and he's fantastic at that. He's, just as far as his skating and his escapability and that kind of thing and finding guys in the middle of the ice, he does that extremely well, but he's going to have to be able to pass to someone who can shoot it.
Yeah, he is. And I feel like there's not many guys on the Canadiens who are established snipers, and one of the problems that they're going to have is the only guy who is really a proven sniper they want to trade as well in Max Pacioretty. That relationship is also not very good, not from Max's perspective. Everything that I've heard is that Pacioretty wants to sign in Montreal for as long as possible, and he's willing to take a discount to do so, which he already has done. His current contract is obscene in how team-friendly it is, and it was at the time, even going back, I think, 5 years ago. But the Canadiens, well, I shouldn't say the Canadiens, but Marc Bergevin, from what I've heard, does not like Max Pacioretty very much, and there's some consternation there. So, that's probably going to be a trade that we're going to see around draft time or maybe slightly after, maybe similar timing to the Subban trade. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, before July 1st anyway.
That's
Right after the
honestly
show tonight.
crazy.
Yeah, that's
is
nuts.
That's crazy.
And I know what you're all thinking. Don't worry, I'm on it. How does this affect
The Leafs.
former Leafs? They actually signed noted Russian Renat Valiev,
Oh.
who they got from the Leafs, and he's I think $650 is league minimum. Is that league minimum
Yeah.
these days?
He's a righty.
Plays on the right, but is a lefty.
Right.
Got you again. Before the show, we were talking about Calvin DeHaan. Sorry, I know my handedness. I play video games.
Andrew, do you see? Obviously, Montreal is going to make a pitch for John Tavares. It's hard for me to imagine that John Tavares is attracted to going to Montreal at this point. If they have a really good team, if it doesn't seem to be in constant shambles, which it seems for the last 2.5 seasons, it's just been a mess. But a guy like Paul Stastny, his name comes up because that's a centerman who's a little bit older, is established. Winnipeg would like to keep him, but they're cap crunched, and Montreal has tons of space to spend. Is that what you're hearing coming in? Like, and is Pacioretty going to get you your other center that you're looking for? Because they need at least two.
Another passer.
Yeah. Yeah, Stastny is more of a passer for sure. And they do kind of, with the way that they've stacked the wings, like Drouin ideally is on the wing, Domi ideally is on the wing. So you've got two passing wingers, which means if those two guys are in your top six, you probably want to have two shooting centers, right? Not necessarily that that's all they do, but you want a guy who's more along the lines of, Jeff Carter,
Austin
or
Matthews.
Stamkos. Not to say you need
Alex
somebody of that
Galchenyuk.
high quality. Yeah, hey, Alex Galchenyuk, that's a good one. But somebody who has that style of game where they're, actually getting the puck to the slot themselves and shooting from there, as opposed to pure playmakers. Not that Stastny can't be a shooter. He changed his game in the playoffs to fit with what the Jets needed, and he became a shooter, especially on the power play. He was like crazy from the low slot and has a bunch of success there. But again, how old is Stastny? 33 years old. Mm-hmm. This is going to probably be his last big chance at a big contract. So you're either going to overpay him for too many years or sign like a really short contract where you're overpaying him by twice as much.
Years. Come on, Montreal, you can do it.
Funny you should say that.
Oh,
Funny you should.
The Tavares thing. Here's why I don't think the Tavares thing is going to happen. Number one, hockey players are stupid loyal. For whatever reason to their draft teams. Like, it makes no sense half the time. Number two, like you said, the Canadiens have been a mess. Maybe if they were, a division-winning team the last 3 straight seasons and just couldn't get over the hump, I could see it a little bit more. But number three, who was John Tavares' best friend growing up?
Wasn't it PK? Oh,
Yes, it was.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, so who does he have telling him information about the Canadiens?
Oh, it's over. They shouldn't even show up.
I didn't even think of that. I did not even think of that.
Andrew, wow. I'm impressed. Steve, what do you want to say?
Well, I said funny you should mention that with Paul Stastny because Platinum Seaghost had a great tweet today. Pretty fired up for July 1 when the Habs signed Paul Stastny to a 5-year, $40 million deal.
It's going to be great.
I could
that's
totally
not
see
as bad
it.
as I would think it could be, to be honest with you.
It's 8 million? 9 million?
That's $8 million per because math.
Ah.
Yeah, it could be worse.
Could be worse. Okay.
The Canadiens are desperate. Think about the last time they were desperate for a center. What did they do? Bob Gainey went out and traded for Scott Gomez.
Ooh.
It's already ugly, but it just feels like it could get so bad.
Well, and that's the problem, right? Is like it's so ugly right now. They're in, like, with the players that they have established on their team, they're kind of in their last stretch to win in these next couple of years. They don't have any A+ prospects, although they have the 3rd overall pick this year. Like, they don't have any depth in terms of prospects, so there's nothing really coming into the pipeline right away, or
they also have 9 picks in the first 4 rounds.
Yes, they do. They can make a huge change in this draft.
They can make a big trade.
Will they?
Trade it all away.
For Lars Eller.
and,
2 of them.
And Devontae Smith-Pelly.
Yeah.
The last time they
4
had
just
a bunch
in the
of
second round.
picks. Yeah, they have a lot. But you know what? The last time they had this many top picks in a draft, I believe it was the Michael McCarron year. So they traded up, I believe, for Michael McCarron. Then they drafted Zach Sokal. Then they drafted Jacob Delarose. Then they drafted Arturi Lehkonen, who is the only good player they drafted that year. So they had 4 picks. I think it was like in the top 54. and they got one player who should be in the NHL. So I don't know. Their drafting and developing is so bad, and that might change now with the overhaul they just did this summer. But again, that's 3-4 years down the line that they're looking at it when Carey Price is 34 years old
and untradeable.
I don't think he's untradeable.
Oh, not now. No, I'm just talking about a few years
ago. Carey Price. I don't know. Even at 34. I mean, look, Roberto Luongo was traded.
That's true.
Two things. You talk about, they're running out of time. Price's contract only kicks in July 1st, man. They got lots of time.
Yeah, I know.
They got lots of time to figure it out. And the other thing is, I'll accept that you're not a fan. You're not. You're definitely not a fan. However, you have all of the similar symptoms that I do. I think we're very similar in that you remember every single wrong thing that team has ever done. Every single thing.
Well, not caring right now doesn't mean that I didn't care in the past, right? It doesn't retroactively erase, good and bad memories that I've had. And also, I'm paid to cover the team, so it makes sense that I watch all their games, although I didn't last year, and keep track of pretty much everything that happens. So you have to have a pretty good finger on the pulse. But it's such a weird situation for them because you look back at when Marc Bergevin took over. There was actually a lot of things going well for the Montreal Canadiens. They had a really bad year after they fired Jacques Martin in, I think, November, and Randy Cunningworth came in and just kind of sunk the team and finished, I believe, third last. The third overall pick. Sounds familiar. And everyone thought they were really bad, but if you looked at the underlying numbers, they were one of the best bad teams in the last 15 years in the NHL. They were really good and just got combination of really unlucky, really injured, and really poor coaching. And then all of a sudden the next year, they won the division, and they looked that first year under Michel Therrien. I'll give Therrien credit. They looked unreal. And they got bounced in the first round by the Senators because in the first game, Brian Giunta separated his shoulder. Max Pacioretty separated his shoulder. Carey Price was playing with a groin injury. And they got super unlucky against Craig Anderson that put up .950 save percentage.
Is that the series? Is that the series where Eric Gryba just ended Lars Eller for 5 years until he won the Cup?
I was at that game, and in the stands, I watched it live.
Wow.
I was at NHL Network that night. That's when I was working there, and the whole newsroom stopped. And it was a collective, and every single person in the room at the same time, no matter what game they were supposed to be watching, just every time the replay came
Just
up.
looking back on the last few years of the playoffs, it feels like the Sens have never been unlucky in the playoffs.
No,
They've
it's
always
true.
been the streaky team, and now it's all coming back down to earth.
It's all that karma of being lucky has been did you know that your organization is the worst ever and everything bad will leak out?
In a 2-week span.
Yeah.
It's just everything happened. Well, now that you said a 2-week span, at the end of that 2 weeks, Carlson's getting traded.
Oh, yeah.
We keep forgetting about that. There's
It's going to happen.
Carlson being up in the air is that a top 3 item with the Ottawa Senators at this very moment? I'm not sure. It might be third.
Well, I feel like everybody kind of assumes right now, or at least their fans do, that Hoffman's the one who's going to get traded first, right?
Who's going to pick him up?
But I don't know.
With that
Somebody
hanging over his head?
Fight on a player that good.
Yeah, I guess. I think, and we've heard reports that there are teams that are obviously very interested in his skill set, but this thing that's hanging over his head, I think rightfully so as a general manager would give you some pause. Although
We also have GMs who are ready to buy low on Slava Voinov.
Yeah. Evander Kane
I
just
think
got
GMs
offered
are
the
ready to
sun
buy
and the
high,
moon, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, who the hell knows then? But
GMs will rail on about character, but really all they care about is on-ice results and, on-ice character. They don't really care about off-ice stuff. You saw Marc Bergevin's, you guys probably didn't, his press conference after the Galchenyuk Domi trade, and he was railing on about how Max Domi has so much character. And this is a guy who last year started tweeting about how much immigrants were stealing jobs and stuff. And it's oh, no, maybe walk that back a little bit.
Yeah. Well, with the character thing, because that seems to be a big thing in Montreal and Edmonton, of all places.
It's funny how losing teams are always chasing character.
Talking about character.
And leadership.
Is there a way?
Or Mike Babcock when he's winning.
Yeah.
He does talk about that, Rogal Pros.
Well,
Is there a way that Montreal comes out of this out of this, again, I always say I'm the biggest Montreal fan from June 15th to July 15th because they're my favorite team in between. Is there a way they come through the draft and free agency a better team than they currently are or a better team than they were last season?
Yeah, who are some of the guys available?
I mean, I think they could do nothing and be a better team than last year. It wouldn't be that hard. All they would need to do is get Carey Price back, right? Like, he had a terrible year last year, and whether it's the chronic fatigue syndrome that it was rumored that he had, or, that he was injured during the year, which I think is definitely true, or, it was just a bad year for him. Like, I don't expect that to be repeated because it was just such aberration based on the trajectory of his career. So every year that he's had that's been off, he's followed up with a phenomenal one. So you never know. They could be a pretty bad team next year, and Carey Price could win the Hart, and they could end up in the playoffs. It's happened before.
Could that lull them into this false sense of security, though? Like, I just feel
again,
if Shea Weber comes back and plays really well and Price plays really well, suddenly they're going to have this whole new outlook on the team, and Bergevin's going to be off the hot seat and that kind of thing. And it's just like,
buddy, I'm banking on.
When has he ever been on the hot seat, though?
That's the thing. They've got so much money tied up in him. It's almost
crazy.
I hope Leaf fans and fans of other Atlantic Division teams understand that the best thing that could happen is next year that Habs do well.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. The thing is,
they won't change.
Is that the best thing that could happen? Because even if they change, I don't think the Canadiens are in a position right now where they're going to be a problem for Toronto during the peak of Toronto's core, right? Like, maybe when the Toronto Maple Leafs are the end of an era, where the Caps are right now, where they just finally won, but everyone kind of okay, they finally won, but no one expects the Caps to repeat next year or win another 2 Cups in the next 5 years.
2030.
Right? Ovi's 32, turning 33. He's not going to be scoring 50 goals a year when he's 38. It's not something you expect. So maybe when Austin Matthews is 30, then maybe the Montreal Canadiens will be a threat, but I don't think there's anything imminent, even if they wake up and make the wholesale changes necessary, where they're going to be a problem. This isn't even a 5-year rebuild, I don't think. If they were to drop everything right now and change, I think it's closer to a 10-year. That's how messed up it is organizationally.
The draft has to be so huge for them. They can't throw those picks away.
That Ryan O'Reilly trade's going to be great. I can't wait. All 4 second-rounders for Ryan O'Reilly.
Although, you know what? In terms of if they actually wanted to, turn the thing around, acquiring Ryan O'Reilly wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It would be terrible long-term for the organization, but he is incredibly underrated. I think he's a top 10 center in the NHL, to be honest with you.
I agree. Wow. I agree. And he's a great face-off guy, and he's on a deal that is, it's high, but that's a guy who, he gets 60 points a season?
And, he was nominated for the Masterton, guys. You can't overlook that.
Right. The timing of that was fantastic, too.
Talk about on-ice character versus off-ice character and how teams do that, and journalists.
Wherever he happens to go, just so I've said this before he gets traded, if he gets traded, I think at the time, it was right to be fully against the Masterton nomination for him, but everything I've ever heard about him as a person, is he's a fantastic guy.
Of course. Well, people make mistakes, whatever.
It happens, yeah.
So, I'm giving it a hard time because listen,
doesn't mean he should be nominated for the Masterton.
For anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, he was nominated for the Masterton after he drove his car drunkenly through Tim Hortons window.
Charged with the DUI.
Charged with the DUI.
I think he got off.
But that was a year after. It was he did it in the summer before, and then he played a season, and then he was nominated for the Masterton. So people were like, well, that's a little bit funny. More a joke than anything. I don't think that's something, it's okay, fine.
Well, I think the funny thing about it was that he crashed into a Tim Hortons, right?
Yeah, it's the most Canadian thing ever.
Yeah, exactly.
And who among us has not? No.
I've had a couple bowls
Canadian among us has not tasted their coffee and thought, I'm ramming my truck into the building.
Okay, you've been hanging out with Justin Fisher too much. You need to stop.
I don't even drink coffee.
Andrew, thank you so much for being on the show today, buddy.
It's my pleasure, guys.
Great to hear your voice, and good luck with the team you're not a fan of.
No.
Thanks. I like covering all the other teams a lot better, actually. The playoffs were a lot of fun.
Well, you're welcome to join the Leafs. We need more coverage.
To all your articles about how good the Leafs are.
And there are many.
Perfect. See you, buddy.
See you, man.
All right. So
See ya.
So I want to ask Scott. We brought up Tavares a little bit in that. You think the Leafs are going to do something crazy with their pitch? Because it was rumored today actually that they've already worked on a video. They had to put the ice back in at the ACC to do this.
Only the Leafs would do that.
Well, they're the richest team. Like, if you're not doing that, you're not doing your job properly.
Right.
If you're not pulling out all the stops.
But you don't think this is an 8-year deal that they're offering?
No, they can't. They can't afford to keep the three young guys and give him term. I think the only way he would end up here is if it was on a 1, maybe a 2-year deal where they just give him $14-15 million a year. Woo. I mean, do
you think that's what
the
they're
pitch
really
for them has to be a sponsorship pitch, right? Mm-hmm. Taxes are brutal here. Players aren't a fan of that as far as moving markets. I don't know what taxes are like in New York either. But
they're less because in America they're just less as a rule.
Yeah. But there would have to be huge money. It would have to be, you can't sort of look past it kind of money. And the Leafs can afford to do that, at least on a 1-year deal. Mm-hmm. I don't care where he goes. I want him to go somewhere else. I'm so tired. I mean, we talked about the NBA before the show, but it's just so great watching big moves happen and star players get what's theirs. These guys deserve a bigger cut of the pie as far as what they bring to the table. And I think it's trending towards being a more of a star-driven league, if you will. So I would love to see him move. I would love to see Karlsson get dealt. I mean, it just changes everything.
And those stories are always the best, right? Because
it's not even about the story. It's just about guys making their own decisions and just owning their careers. And I think Tavares has a huge chance to do that. He could come here for a year and then he could leave and go get term somewhere else. And that would be fine. I think even if they don't win a Stanley Cup here, if they just go on a run, I think that would be really interesting as far as what he would bring to the table and what that contract would look like and how that would change things for future star players as they hit free agency.
And correct me if I'm wrong, like the most exciting day in terms of transactions in the NHL in like the last 20 years. Hall for Larson, 1-for-1. Whoa! Subban for Weber, 1-for-1. Holy shit! Stamkos resigns in Tampa. You're no fun.
Yeah.
He ruined the whole thing. And I think it happened in that order.
You just know that taxes was a huge factor in that.
Sure.
It has to be. It has to be. And it's a disadvantage for the Leafs. There would have to be some sort of massive sponsorship package
which they can easily do
off the ice, which they can absolutely do. They clearly don't want to make Matthews the face of the franchise just as far as a promotional standpoint. I don't know whether that will change now that Lou's gone, just as far as the kind of play that Marner and those guys get. But
the insight I have on that is they didn't want to overload him too soon.
Right.
Because Connor McDavid was plastered on every wall in Edmonton before he'd played a game.
Right.
And they thought that was part of the blue and white disease here, which was, and I'm not saying that Connor McDavid has that, but the Leafs had for an issue, like they had a culture issue here. And that was one of the things that, from what I've been told, they wanted to stay away from doing that. They wanted him to focus on hockey. It's why they wouldn't allow him or Nylander or Marner to talk in between the intermissions. And
they weren't on that outdoor game against Washington.
They weren't on the poster.
They weren't even on the poster. That's insane. Mm-hmm. The poster should literally just be those three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of that goes back to Tim Leiweke coming in for the first time and taking down all the old stuff that was in the ACC.
All the old pictures.
And everything new.
Yeah.
Well, and everything we know about Tavares, he doesn't necessarily even want that spotlight. So maybe that's a deal breaker for him because he doesn't want to come back home. He doesn't want to be that kind of a guy. But even if he entertains it, do you remember the Mike Richards sweepstakes?
Brad
Richards. That was one of the greatest things we've ever seen.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It was just, even if he entertained it and really gave, even if he goes back to, well, it's Brooklyn now, looks like it's going to be back to the Long Island soon. But even if he goes back, just the fact that he's really actually open to it rather than just, it seemed like Stamkos in the end kind of just entertained it more as a piece of leverage to go back to Tampa. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just the options and really sort of giving that a go. I think it's good for the players. I think it would be great for star players to see one of them move on a short-term deal.
And key with Stamkos, the Leafs sucked. The Leafs were really bad when he signed that deal. I mean, I think time has proven him right. Tampa was a cup contender this year. They were Final Four. Mm-hmm. We're a game away from going to the Stanley Cup final, and next year they could be just as good. That's not going to change
anytime soon.
Yeah,
no. That team is going to be filthy for the next 4 or 5 years.
Exactly. So it's either he was going to be with the Leafs playing Tampa, or he's going to be with Tampa playing the Leafs.
Right.
Stay with the place with lower taxes, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Brooklyn doesn't. I mean, the Islanders don't have a good team, though. That's the thing. I mean, as good as Barzal is and Beauvillier and those kind of guys, it's pretty thin.
I feel like they're not the worst, though, and I've sort of said this for a while. Like, they scored so much last year. Didn't they lead the league? Or were top 5, something like that?
Yeah, they were definitely gifted offensively.
But they could not keep the puck out of the net. They had such bad goaltending.
And you've got... The problem is, though, and I see what both of you are saying, to me, they just feel like a team that is always constantly fighting for 8th place.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you want to, is that what you want to do for the rest of your career? If you're John
the
Tavares?
Flyers have been in that lull for the last little while, too, but it seems like they might finally be escaping that. I think Provorov and guys are going to be a huge difference maker. But you can't look at the Islanders and say, oh, they've got an Ivan Provorov coming on D. That he just doesn't exist, right?
Hear me out. Leafs top line. John Tavares, Wayne Simmons, Zach Hyman. Hear me out. That's what it's going to be.
How would they get Wayne Simmons? He's Toronto.
Wayne Simmons was totally your one guy I want to come to Toronto question at Puck Talks, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah.
I just think he'd be a god here.
He lives 4 doors down from my fiance right now, and he's back in Toronto, and I think he really likes it here. I mean, he chose to live in the suburbs here in the off season and that kind of thing. So,
that's because he grew up in the suburbs here.
Yeah, we grew up with him.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Adam went to school with him, I think.
Yeah,
right on.
Nice guy. Really good guy. Same age, so...
You should talk to him because he's into like real estate and stuff.
Is he?
Yeah.
Wayne Simmons is into real estate?
That's what I heard.
Get out.
That's the hot
man,
rumor
we're
in
best
East
friends
Scarborough.
now. Yeah, so now I got to know, and this has got part of the reason that we initially wanted to talk to you, and yet we're saving it for the end here, but Leafs draft strategy, and what else do you expect from the draft? So I will start with the Leafs because that's what matters in the NHL. It's the Leafs and then everybody else. What do you see their strategy as being? Are they going to trade up that pick? Are they going to keep it? Are they going to trade it down? What do you think?
It's tough to say. This is probably the question I get asked most often is what are the Leafs going to do with that first round pick? Kyle came out in his presser that he just did with us a few days ago and basically said, I don't know how I got pigeonholed as the trade down guy. Everybody assumes I'm just going to trade down. That may not be the case. I think if they have a guy there that they really like, they'll take him. I think a lot of people expect them to take a defenseman with that pick. And in this draft, this is one of the only drafts where that might make sense, where this is probably as good of a draft on D as we've seen since 2012, maybe even before that. There's just probably 10, 12, 14 guys deep where they're really quality prospects on D. But I think there's a very good chance they take a forward if other teams have reached on some of those defensemen before then. I wouldn't be surprised if they traded down. They don't have the assets to move up, I don't think. They only have 7 picks this year. It's not like 2 years ago when they had 11. So I think trading down is probably more likely than trading up or using it as some sort of other package to acquire a defenseman, which I know a lot of people want them to do. But honestly, I just don't think that kind of a pick has much value, especially in this draft where it's a weaker draft. People have this idea that late firsts have this huge value. And I mean, teams have certainly overpaid at free agency in the last couple of years as far as that goes. But I think on draft day, when they realize, hey, none of our guys are left, it's a little bit of a different story. So I know there's a few players that interviewed with them really well at the draft, just guys that I spoke to at the draft. But I mean, you got to take that with a grain of salt too.
Because they're all going to say, they're not going to be like, it went bad.
Right.
Did anyone say it went bad?
Some people, I mean, Philip Zadina, we were just talking about Montreal. Philip Zadina came out at the draft. Everybody expected him to go 3rd overall to Montreal. He came out and said, I don't think they're going to take me. I think they're going to take a center or a defenseman. I just didn't get the vibe in my chat that I was going to go 3rd overall.
He's probably right, too, because I think Bergevin wears his heart on his sleeve from what we understand.
I've said this before. When I was with Leafs TV, we were at the 2010 draft combine. And we had the chance to interview a bunch of players throughout the day, and one of them was Ryan Spooner. And he was one of the more challenging interviews because he had just gotten out of his interview with the New York Islanders, and they pissed him off. Like they were one of those interviews where they intentionally try to antagonize the player. That's what they did to him, and he didn't respond well to it.
Good Lord!
And now he plays for the Rangers, so take that, Islander.
As far as overall strategy goes, though, I think they'll draft smaller than they have in the last few years. The Leafs have, for all the credit that Hunter got for his drafting and the way he built the London Knights, and credit to him, the staple organization in the OHL, I don't think he drafted all that well in Toronto, and they drafted big. They drafted overage kids who haven't panned out, and a lot of picks where you saw them take that player on day one, and you said, there's a very low chance this is going to turn out. And if it does turn out, you're looking at a fringe sort of depth guy. I think you'll see Kyle take some swings. He's going to want to hit home runs. He knows that you can pick up players who sort of play lower in the lineup on waivers and that kind of thing and fill around the edges. And I think teams increasingly are just going to be swinging for the fences with all of their picks. And the Leafs haven't done that, at least in the last 2 years. They haven't done that at all. So I think that will change. And a byproduct of that you'll probably see some 5'10", 5'9" guys that they pick up. But
high skill,
flyers. Yeah,
high
for
upside.
sure.
A lot of people talk about at that point, in the mid 20s to mid 30s, you're looking at guys with high potential upsides that could really either blow up or blow out. And one of the guys that figures most prominently in that is Ryan Merkley. And I know you're banging that drum. Are you a believer in what he can bring, and are his off ice issues or perceived off ice issues truly a thing that'll get in the way?
We've spoken to a few people who really don't like him.
Yeah. Some of it is perceived. I spoke with both his head coach, George Burnett, and his new agent. He switched agents in the last little while, JP Barry, in the last month. And JP wanted to set the record straight with me because there had been a bunch of reporters who had been reporting that he was sent home a few times this year. He was never sent home. He sat out one weekend. It was a temper issue in a practice. Nobody will tell you what it was. Sounds like he took a dirty run at a guy in practice or slashed a guy or that kind of thing. Definitely has a temper issue. JP Barry was upfront about that with me. Can lose it in practice, can be hard to deal with him with coaches and that kind of thing. And then there's defensive issues that are just there for any smaller player, and he doesn't really have a great head on his shoulders as far as his decision making on the ice. But I'm of the opinion that at 20, if he's there at 25th overall, there will be no comparable as far as skill. There will be no player, even if other players fall. Nobody's going to be available at 25th overall in this draft class unless one of the top 12 guys falls, which isn't going to happen. There's a pretty large consensus at the top of this draft. There just won't be a comparable as far as skill. So you have to play that balancing act. And I think if there's one organization that has proven that they can sort of develop players, the Leafs have done that in recent memory. They did it with Kadri, who had issues. I think they're really committed to that kind of a process, not just the skill development, but Sheldon Keefe has been sort of dialed in on players and managing personalities and that kind of thing. I would swing for him if he's there in the late first round. I know a lot of teams. I know at least 3 or 4 teams that have him on a no draft list. I won't take him no matter where he is.
And is that just based on the temper issue?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I think it's also that he's a skinny kid, but there's always a counterpoint. He's one of the youngest players in the draft, barely eligible for this draft. So there's a maturity physically and just as a kid that needs to come into play there. There's guys like Evan Bouchard that are almost a full year older than him, right? And I just think he's so gifted. You can't pass it up. You got to take the swing. If you miss, you miss. But otherwise, you're going to draft a kid at 25th overall who ends up as what, a third, fourth liner in 3. Yeah, exactly. Tyler Biggs.
God, he's God.
Yeah, it's a tough balancing act though.
One thing I saw today was like, here's the last bunch of 25th overall picks. And outside of David Pastrnak, who was fantastic, it wasn't a very flattering list. And a lot of people were like, I'm not optimistic. It's like, well, just because other teams were dumb doesn't mean the Leafs will be.
Yeah.
Like, just because other teams whiffed. The other thing is, if something like that turns you off, the Ryan Merkley taking a run at a teammate in practice, Bill Guerin was a captain in the NHL. He was, I think, a coach with the Penguins. Won a cup with the Penguins in 2009, and I think he was still part of Penguins' player development and still is. YouTube Bill Guerin fights teammate. It's one of the dirtiest things I've ever seen in the sport of hockey, and it's Bill freaking Guerin.
He hits him in the head with a stick, right? Doesn't he just
it was a rookie? Yeah, it was a rookie. He just clobbered him.
Yeah,
clobbered him in the head, and he was at camp.
Yep,
or something like that. I don't know what the hell that was.
Yeah, but tempers get up. but you're Bill Guerin. You should be better than that.
And to Merkley's credit, whenever he's been put in a situation where he's playing best on a team where he really has to stay dialed in, Guelph's been brutal the last couple of years. But when he's played at Hlinka's and under 18s and under 17s, and when he played at the top prospects game this year, he was unreal at the top prospects game. And there's a sample size issue that obviously comes into play there because we've seen all the turnovers. We've seen how lazy he is in the defensive zone in Guelph and that kind of thing. But he does have a gear where he can turn it on. He can stay focused. He can be, by all accounts, a good teammate. Cam Hillis, who's going to get drafted this year in Guelph, really likes him. I think he can do it. And this is a kid who's, as far as talent goes, is after Rasmus Dahlin, borderline the most talented defenseman in this draft. So you've got a kid who can fly, make plays. The passes he makes across the ice are just unreal, like plays that you wouldn't imagine a player making, blind passes. But yeah, there's some serious issues defensively.
Who else would they be considering at that point? Like, who do you think's on their list? He's got to be. You think if we think that Kyle Dubas is going to draft the way we think he is, but we've only got like a half draft to go on, so we don't really know.
Right. I think you could see a player like Jonathan Berggren, who is just an elite offensive player who's played in Sweden, sort of came up in the development program in Sweden, has come onto the scene really in the sort of latter half of this season where he grabbed hold of it and was dynamic offensively. Just smaller players with a ton of skill like that. The thing is, there aren't a lot, particularly in terms of forward. There's another defenseman, and I've got a closer look at him and how he might be a fit for the Leafs coming out at The Athletic. But his name's Kalen Addison, a lot like Merkley, just sort of with lesser degree on both ends. So he doesn't have that elite offensive upside, but still extremely gifted offensively. Point per game defenseman in the WHL, struggles in his own zone. Smaller kid like Merkley.
Personality issues?
Not personality issues, just sort of defensive issues. And he's a kid who, in this draft, there's going to be defensemen that fall just because there's so many defensemen. You almost never see point per game defensemen go in that sort of 20 to 40 range, which is where Addison looks like he's going to go. So I think he could be the kind of player. Played in Lethbridge. The Leafs have ties to Lethbridge through Andrew Nielsen and coaching staff there as well. So he's the kind of player who could be a good fit with them. Just really dynamic defenseman. But yeah, there's not a lot in way of forwards that are going to be available in that range, at least with high upside offensively.
Wow.
Very interesting.
Okay. And
what about Kotkaniemi? I want to see him drafted by the Leafs so that
25th overall?
Yeah.
That would be a record fall.
I know, but I just want to see it because Bobby Cappuccino from TheLeafsNation.com has to get a tattoo of him on his ass.
I saw
that. If the Leafs get him, he vowed to do it. It's definitely not going to happen, but they got Liljegren at 17.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing at all. But I just want to see it. I want to see how bad that tattoo would be. You can't get it done from someone who knows what they're doing.
Someone falls every year. You never know.
yeah, but that far?
No.
They don't fall out of the top 20.
No,
There's
he's
no
the
way.
one that causes the falling.
Yeah.
Sounds like Zadina, actually. Could not fall to 25, but he could fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Closer to sort of 10, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, you know what? I think it's time for the press conference. I think we've thoroughly investigated, don't you? All right. Jesse?
We have two really
The
good questions.
Steve Dangle press conference.
Really good.
We'll be the judge of that. Thank you very much.
Really,
I don't
good
know.
questions.
I'm not convinced.
Blazik 164 wants to know if you would give up one of the Leafs' big three, so Nylander, Marner, or Matthews. Obviously, not going to give up Matthews to get Tavares.
Well, how would that work? Like,
So
you would have to.
if there's some sort of weird situation where you can get Tavares, but you have to give up Marner, would you do it?
Well, okay. The only way I think that would happen is like
You sign Tavares and you have to trade one of the other guys.
Exactly. So, I mean, at least I can't think of a scenario where that would be good. I can't think of a scenario because then the guy you get back for them in a trade, how are you going to lock them up? Right? So, you could trade them for this great right-handed deep. Well, how are you going to lock them
like
up?
a
The whole
Jacob
reason
Trouba.
you got rid of them was you can't afford them anymore. So I just can't
What if
imagine.
it's a future asset?
Then they're unproven. You don't know what you're getting.
Yeah, it's Magic Bean. I don't like it. I don't like the idea of getting rid of
Scott looks
any
like
of
he's
them.
got something interesting.
I don't like the idea of that at all.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought it was going to be like Nylander. Fuck it.
I was thinking when we were talking to Berkshire earlier, I grew up a Leafs fan, really don't care what happens in the games anymore. The only player on the Leafs that gets me excited when I'm watching him is Nylander.
I love him.
When Nylander plays well, he's the most entertaining player on the team, in Marner and Matthews included. And it's a joy to watch.
He's also one of those players where I'm like, we haven't seen the best of him yet.
No, I don't think we have.
Close.
There are so many. So like Marner has had stretches of just destroying other teams. Matthews is obviously scored 40 goals as a rookie and then scored at I think an even higher rate this season. But Nylander, like I just feel like puck luck hasn't quite gone
Imagine
his
if
way.
that power play was good this year. Imagine how much of a difference that would have made on Nylander and Matthews' production.
And how stoked is Dubas that it wasn't that good?
Yeah,
Right.
Marleau looked out of place on that power play. I thought maybe I'm wrong, but that was their PP2 unit, right?
Yeah.
It was Marleau. Was it Marleau, Kadri, Nylander?
No,
The PP1,
PP1
was JVR, Bozak, Kadri, Marner, Riley.
And PP2
And I think that was meant to be 2.
Yeah.
And number 1 was Matthews, Nylander, Marleau, Gardiner, and who was
Komarov often.
Komarov.
Okay,
very
well,
often.
you forget Patrick Marleau. Forget that I said Patrick Marleau. Komarov looked a little out of place. I know they wanted to do this. They tried to make him into JVR a little bit, right? Like it was kind of like crash and burn in the corners. I would rather see a guy like Andreas Janssen in that role. He seems like a guy that'd be perfect for it. But
Right,
that's-
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think Kapanen would be
he'd be good too.
effective there as well.
Question from the peanut gallery. Yeah, who do you like as a net front presence on the
And do they need it?
on the power play
Without JVR?
without JVR?
Who's replacing JVR?
Well, because it was JVR and
I don't think they have
Konrad.
anyone. I don't think they have anyone. You're not going to put Hyman there. You're not going to put Connor Brown there.
Why can't you put Hyman there?
I don't think he's gifted offensively. I think you end up in a he's better than Leo Komarov as a net front presence, but I don't think he pushes the needle. I would be okay with them stacking Kadri, Matthews, Nylander, Marner, 4 forwards with Jake Gardiner or Morgan Riley, and
Just let them play.
yeah,
Because they're not going to play. None of those guys are playing penalty kill.
Matthews needs to play more in the power play. That needs to happen no matter what next season. And I think with that, you'll see Nylander play more. Kadri and Marner are outstanding on the power play.
Yes. Yes, they are. Have you heard anything about, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but have you heard anything about the Matthews-Babcock relationship through, your channels? Nothing, eh?
Not really. I mean, just what's been reported as far as didn't go well in his camp, which I'm not sure I buy into. I think it's probably all overblown. I think Matthews had a pretty brutal playoffs by his standards. He was probably expecting to be a lot better. If he is a lot better, they're probably in the second round, and then you don't know what happens next. And that's frustrating. And Babcock's a demanding coach. And I do believe that he really wants to play with Marner. And I think when they tested that in the playoffs, they liked what they saw, and then they were flipping around a bit too much, probably for Matthews' liking.
Do you see Nylander? Like, in a perfect world, we get Tavares. But in a non-perfect world, Nylander, is that the guy that's your third line center?
I like Nylander at center. I thought when he was in his draft year and even after his draft year, when he played center in the SHL and center with the Marlies, he was better in the SHL when he was at center, and he was better with the Marlies when he was at center. Obviously, that hasn't been the case when he's been tested there to date. He also hasn't had great line mates. I think if you stuck him in sheltered minutes with 2 talented forwards,
Janssen and Kapanen?
exactly, that it could really work. I think Nylander is best when he has the puck on his stick. Centers get the puck more than wingers do. It's a natural fit for him if he can be even okay defensively. But, I mean, Tyler Bozak hasn't been okay defensively for a while, and he was an effective player in a sheltered role.
Yeah.
Been the argument for a while, man.
Yeah.
It's been the argument for a while. Really, what are you
I
losing?
think Nylander could excel there if they give him 2 decent line mates and they actually stick to it. I think their problem is
Let him go beyond
Right,
20 games. Like,
right.
let's go a full season with this.
Oh my
But I also think that
Johnson, Nylander,
if
Kapanen
if Marner Matthews is what's going to happen, then I think that Kadri and Nylander would also make an excellent second duo, right?
Well, what if you do Marleau, Brown, Kadri? Is that not a good, second, third, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it would be fine. They're also going to sign players this summer. I think people forget about that when they pencil in a Trevor Moore or a Carl Grundstrom. They have to sign players. They have all this money this summer. Even if it's not a Tavares, they're going to sign players. The problem is that they're not going to be able to get significant players on short-term deals because significant players don't sign short-term deals in free agency. So it'll be interesting to see whether they can upgrade at forward or on defense without giving term.
Here's the thing about that, and I'm just throwing this out there. I could be completely wrong, but Gardiner's got an expiring deal at 4.25? Is that what he's making?
It's even less. It's 4.015.
Okay,
it's one of those really
stupid,
specific
weird
numbers. Yeah.
So he's got that deal. And then Marleau will probably retire at the end of the season. That's the expectation, I would think. After
They're in
that.
trouble if he doesn't, as far as money goes.
Or they'll trade him after July 1st or something like that next year. Because I think that's how the deal is structured, right? It's so that can happen. Or LTIR is always available in Leafland. But
to his credit, he was good. Marleau was good last year.
Listen, I thought he was a great
He's
pickup.
overpaid, and he's going to be overpaid for his entire contract, but he was really effective.
I think they went in knowing that.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to overpay for this guy for 3 years, but he's going to be good for
And
us.
he was great for the room and all those things. I think Marleau's a great and useful player. And if he remains so through this year, that's fantastic too. Almost scored 30 goals last year. That's great.
He never gets injured. So which could be a problem for them if they do want to move on, even if his contract is what it is, just because it's hard to make a player disappear who
never gets hurt. It's
never
true.
gets injured. You can't invent an injury for Patrick Marleau. He's the one guy in the league.
They'd call bullshit on that.
Yeah.
But if let's say there's a team that's looking to hit the floor and on July 2nd after they've paid their bonus, because most of that contract is bonus, they're able to move that. So let's say they move that deal. That's $10 million next summer. That's out. So that is the cap situation that bad if Gardiner and Marleau are no longer part of the picture? I mean, it's not great, but it's...
No, but you're going to have, 20+ million in the 3 kids? Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have huge holes on D to fill.
Yep.
So it's tough. Like, what would the D look like after that? You've got Riley signed a term. You've got Zaitsev signed a term. That's basically it. You've got Dermott, who will be on the cheap still. And then, I mean, people expect Timothy Liljegren, but how much of an impact is he going to be, especially if they want to compete for a cup?
Mm-hmm. And he'll be barely 20 at that point.
Right.
Okay.
Now, when the Leafs lost to Boston in 2013, that team basically got carried into the playoffs by goaltending. And so naturally, management went out and got another goaltender. I remember being like, what the hell are you doing? That was like, is that the area where you want to improve at? I'm interested to see what Dubas does in his first offseason as GM, because if he doesn't do something on defense, I think a lot of people are going to roll their eyes.
And would any of us be shocked if Zaitsev had a really good start to the year and he tried to sell high on him? I feel like that's a very Kyle Dubas move to try and pull off.
Really?
And I feel like that
he's
would
a right-handed defenseman.
Dealing Zaitsev could be a huge priority for him if he really wants to open up the kind of cap space that he needs.
See, I don't remember if it was you or Berkshire who said it earlier, but why not wait for Galchenyuk to have a really good start to the year and then trade him? No, I could see Bergevin being like, oh, he's fixed now, and then keeping him.
Right.
So, that's exactly what I would expect him to do. So you think he would have a good start and
put him on the power play. Put him back on the power play.
You have to think when Dubas came in as general manager, one of the biggest issues that he saw with his roster moving forward was Zaitsev's contract. I think Kyle's smart enough to recognize that, and then to maybe make it a priority to move him. The issue is that Nikita Zaitsev is the top of the sort of Mike Babcock leaderboard.
Loves him
on a weekly basis.
We love him.
Like, it doesn't matter how he plays. Babs loves him.
I don't get that. But it was a project.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe, and you know what? If he does come back and he is the player he was the first year, I don't hate the contract. I don't hate it.
No.
I don't hate it.
No, but it's how long can he be that? Can he be that player for 6 more years?
Probably not. But if he can get another year out of that, that's okay. Trade him after that. I don't know.
To your point about like the first month or two, like I'm excited to see what Babcock does with him. Like just in terms of usage, because I remember after like the first week of the season, I'm like, oh, you're about to have a very bad year. Mm-hmm. You're about to have a very unfun year. Not that he was playing poorly, but that he was going to be playing 8 minutes on the penalty kill every night.
Right.
And then he did.
They cannot do that. That is also something that they absolutely cannot do.
Square peg round hole with him.
Yeah, and Hainsey.
Yeah.
I mean, you can play them on the penalty kill, so be it, but you cannot play them a full 2 minutes on the penalty kill and expect results. It's just not going to happen.
And why not do 3 forwards on the penalty kill?
Why not try Morgan Riley or Jake Gardiner on the penalty kill for more than spot usage for 10 seconds a night?
Riley's a Gronk, man. he's strong. There were 2 goals, I want to say Backus scored both during that series where he just ate Hainsey alive. And I would like to see someone else.
I mean, Gardiner plays big minutes, but it's not like Morgan Riley's playing 30 minutes a night without the penalty kill time. Like, there's room there.
20?
Yeah.
Jesse, second question.
If you were the Ottawa Senators, what is a good deal for Mike Hoffman? That's from Give 'em a Tug Nut.
Damn good question. Let's hear it.
That is a great question.
Because you can't.
What do you get back and say, okay, this is it. This is good enough for us?
You can't just give him away.
No?
Does it have to be picks in this year's draft to sort of save face? Because you're going, look, and you can immediately put a name to it. If you get picks in the 2019 draft, it's going to be a little more difficult to sell it as, hey, look, we won. You know, if you get a second round pick or something, let's say, and it's a pick that your fan base really likes, I think it makes you look better in the short term, at least, and hopefully that player works out, and then it's good long term.
He is so talented that getting a second round pick would sting.
Well, I'm just throwing.
No, I know, but just you're going to have to sell low at him this point, and then you've got a fan base that is already in fuego with your ownership and your sort of management situation. I mean, it's his own. Potentially, it's his own doing. We won't know, but you can't let it play out either, can you? I mean, if you let it play out and it goes further south than it already has for Hoffman, then he has no value.
Be interesting to see, like, where's a player?
It's so sad.
Where's a team? It's extremely sad. Where's a team you can go if you want to like disappear, like get away from the attention? Yes, but I can't imagine them trading for a Hoffman.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I don't think that's where they
trying
are.
to move Bukestad.
Yeah, maybe Florida. I was thinking a team like
I get the
Ducks.
feeling that Florida isn't that many pieces away from being really good either.
They should have been good last year. I don't understand.
What did they have? 96?
Points?
90? Yeah. They had more points this year missing the playoffs than the Leafs did last year making them.
Oh, there you go.
That's crazy.
That's a crazy stat.
So
many good players too.
I look and I go, okay, where's a place you could sort of get away from the limelight, get maybe a second round pick or a late first if it's available, and who's like a talented guy who's like on the fringe of your roster or in the system who's a bit of a dick. Like he's got some issues.
You know what?
What?
Forget even that. Calgary's got all those defensive prospects. Calgary could use Mike Hoffman.
And he would be a huge difference maker there.
Huge.
And you send him to the West Coast.
Yeah, he's
Central
You think he
Canada,
wants to play in
West,
Canada?
But
I don't think he has. I don't think he's got a choice. I mean, I know he's got a no trade, but at this point, I think he's just better get out of Ottawa. And Calgary is one of the best places in this country to live. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to go there.
it's just far away from Ottawa is what they need. You know?
Yeah, it is far away from
Dude,
Ottawa.
get out of the East.
Yeah, that's
Forget
what
the
I'm
Atlantic, get out
saying
of the
about going
East.
to the West.
Yeah, I think
Florida would actually suck because you'd be going back 6 times a year.
They don't trade him anywhere in division in the Eastern Conference. You send him to the West.
Well, he doesn't
get
allow
rid
them
of
to, right? He's got that no move or no trade or whatever it is. But if I were him,
He's got to uproot his whole life because of this.
well, if
insane.
at least with him,
It feels like no matter how it goes, he has to.
Yeah.
Even if they get exonerated, he has to.
Well, this is what I keep going back to is whether he's innocent or not. The Carlsons seem to think he's guilty.
And so do the significant others of everyone else on the team, it
which
seems.
means you would think that the significance.
Yeah, you're not coming back from that. Like even if they're like, he didn't do it, like or she didn't.
Well, and there's obviously
you're not coming back from that.
There's obviously other issues there too. I mean, I know that we're speculating at this point, but do you really think that these people would come out and make public statements if there hadn't been a history of something there?
No way.
There's no way.
Every player.
Nobody
on
says
this
anything.
How
roster
often do
could
we
write a-
hear women
Wives.
or significant others come out and say and badmouth a member of their team? Never.
Ever. So
like women who weren't even associated with the team?
Yeah.
Like
the Winnicks,
Cadet
et cetera.
Labarbera and
did Winnick play there?
No,
Sorry?
never.
Winnick never played in
Winnick
Ottawa.
Never played in Ottawa.
So that's weird too. I mean, not weird, but like not like it was unexpected. Telling and unexpected.
Right.
So yeah, long story short, I think Calgary makes a lot of sense because they need the scoring.
So like,
And they've got the defensive prospects. And if you're going to look at moving Karlsson, you're going to want to at least have some young guys that you can sell hope with, right?
Losing both of those guys
You're never going to get fair
without
value.
a first round pick.
And I don't think you're going to get fair value for Carlson
Are
either.
they giving it up?
Oh, well,
They're
No,
drafting
they're keeping
this year.
this year. So
Yeah,
they're
they're drafting
that's
this
already
year.
official?
Yeah, that's already
Why are they
done.
doing that?
Yeah, they're
They're
it's
keeping
done.
this
They're
year's,
keeping
yeah.
4th overall, and
Yeah.
there's a very good chance they're drafting right there again next year, and they're going to have to lose it.
You roll the dice on that, though.
Do you?
Yeah, on 4th overall, the odds are just better.
Because I just think they'll be as bad next year.
But the odds are better that you won't be, just numbers wise.
you're giving up a lottery pick if you're on.
It's going to be crazy if they end up giving up
Just the first overall pick.
That'd be
Just
awesome.
be like
If
this.
they win one of the 3
Yeah.
lottery picks.
Somebody
and then they
check
have
on
to give
Brian
it
5
up.
or 6.
How many
No
times?
kidding.
Dude, I wrote about it this year. I think the Leafs have traded their first round pick over a year ahead of time. I think 3 times. And the 3 times were Scott Niedermayer, Roberto Luongo, and Tyler Seguin. Stop doing it. Stop it. Tyler Seguin counts because it was before the season began. Stop doing it. And the Sens did it, and well,
The
look where
package
they are.
Colorado got for Matt Duchene was an all-timer.
Can I take back every bad thing I've ever said about Joe Sakic?
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
This was trade of the year,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's a crazy amount. And the fact that he got it from both Nashville and Ottawa on that. Like, how
And
did
Kyle
you do
Turris
that?
is good, but you don't throw away several high picks and a really good prospect for Kyle Turris.
No. And
I mean,
Gerard
it makes
looks
more
like
sense for them because Nashville had a legitimate shot at winning the cup, but Ottawa.
Yeah. Yeah.
To put more effort into trying to answer this question, the prospect that immediately comes to mind is Josh Hosang. Like I don't know if
Lou would
the
for
Islanders
sure do that.
Yes, absolutely
Like-
would.
In a minute.
Lou would do Hosang and something for Hoffman.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking for is other prospects around the league who clearly have talent but have maybe fallen out of favor with the team that
Yeah.
they're with.
Anthony D'Angelo comes to mind as
Boy.
a guy who's got some baggage.
What's the baggage? Do we know?
Yes, he was suspended several times in the OHL in his OHL career for racial slurs, both to teammates and to officials and to other players.
Enormous Trump supporter.
Yeah, one of those guys where like Max Domi. Don't go through Max Domi's likes on Twitter.
Right.
Or Mike Fisher's, for that matter. Not that he's a prospect or anything, but I did that the other
Right.
day and was thoroughly mad.
But yeah, D'Angelo is one of those guys who's got a lot of baggage,
Wow. Okay.
but super talented player.
Yeah.
But
They normally are.
we're doing like if you're going to trade Mike Hoffman, like these are the ugly conversations you got to have.
Whereas if you were
gotta
looking to
put
trade
on-
him a month ago or at the trade deadline,
Dude, the Jets were
well,
going to
you're
give like
not.
a first.
You're not looking to trade him. You're looking to keep him because you're trying to be good next year.
well, they had the deal worked out with the Jets. That was done.
Yeah.
But, like at least I think that they were going to have to trade him anyway. I honestly do.
Just apples to apples, though. I think Mike Hoffman is better than Matt Duchene. Do you guys agree with that? And so if you're looking at trading him, whatever the value you get in return, and you look at what you just gave up for Duchene, there's no way. There's
What
no
an
way you can even
ungodly mess.
scratch the surface.
And Duchene is another guy they need to trade because he's got a year left and he's not staying there, and they're not going to do it.
No, they can't.
One suggestion we
They
saw.
can't. Just the look of it, they cannot.
You still got to do it. You still got to do it.
One
You get out.
suggestion we saw was Ottawa somehow getting Hoffman or someone to Colorado so that they could get their own pick back. Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Or no, it wasn't Hoffman. Sorry, it was Carlson.
Yeah. Well,
They're
Hoffman might actually get you
They're
your
going
big
to
guy.
need Thomas Chabot to just be a superstar.
and Cody Ceci to be the guy they keep telling us Cody Ceci is,
Yeah.
which he's not.
They don't have a lot coming in terms of prospects either. Belleville was historically bad this year.
Yep. They were not good.
I mean, like Colin White and those guys are okay, but they're not going to sort of move the needle.
This is what I mean. Duchene needs to go.
Well, so
Duchene
we had
needs
a-
to be traded.
I thought we had a really fun show going.
Yeah.
And, we brought up
I
all
actually-
the
The show
shows.
on a fun stat.
Oh, let's do it.
Yes.
All right. So this comes from baseball. Comes from the world of baseball. So the Yankees and Nationals played a game today that they were playing. They picked it up from the 5th inning because it was rain delayed on May 15th. And then they made it up today and they picked it up in the 5th inning and they played the rest of the game. So in today's game, Washington Nationals prospect Juan Soto. He's 19 years old. He's a phenom. They just called him up. He homered. He had a home run. But he wasn't called up when the original game was played. So he has on his record a home run from May 15th when he was technically in AAA. Wow. And not even technically in AAA. That day on May 15th, he played a game for the Nationals AAA team. So he has, in the baseball records books,
wild.
he was in two places at once and hit 2 home runs for 2 different teams.
Why can't they just like put an asterisk on it and like
Baseball,
write
man.
the proper date?
No, because
Baseball.
and it's crazy that they even allow a player who was not in the majors and hadn't played a major league game to play in a game that's technically on May 15th, but your rosters can be whatever they want on the current day it is, despite the fact that the game happened over a month ago.
Baseball's whack, man. I don't get it.
Baseball is so goofy and so fun.
You can imagine a scenario where if it is the other way and you can't add that player to your roster, where if you trade a guy and then you've got to start the
He's gotta
roster.
come back.
Yeah, you gotta come back.
You have to fly him in for the day just to play that one game.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a great stat.
I'm sorry, he was in AA. He went 3 for 5 for
Baseball.
Harrisburg.
I feel like baseball, you could be a fan your entire life and still not know every quirk. You could still see something in the game that gets called and you
Even
go,
just
what?
the-
I didn't even know there was a...
Even just the baseball draft and the
Oh.
signing rules and high school, college, it's a gong show.
Yeah.
There was a clip that went viral of, it was a guy on the Astros and the Astros drafted his brother and he was the one who told him. He's like, hey man, you were just drafted in the 37th round by the Stros. And all the comments are, wow, that's so cool. That's so inspirational. And I'm like, they had 37 rounds?
Oh, yeah. I think it's
Think
more
about
than
how
40.
hockey was when Eric Lindros sort of refused to go to the team that selected him. That happens every single year.
Yeah.
Teams blow 3rd overall picks on a guy who they either can't afford to sign or doesn't want to come.
Didn't the Jays blow it with Chris Bryant? Didn't the Jays
Yeah, they originally drafted him. I think he went back into the draft.
Yeah, he just-
Or they didn't want to give him. They didn't have enough money allocated for the signing bonus in his slot where he was drafted.
So they drafted basically one of the best prospects in baseball and had to let him go back.
Imagine if Rasmus Dahlin was like, yeah, Buffalo's not for me.
Yeah. See ya. Peace.
There are 40
I mean, he
MLB rounds. There are
He might
40
still
rounds in the MLB draft. But
Yeah.
Wow.
40 rounds.
and it takes a couple days.
NHL, remember when the NHL used to have 12? Whoa.
Yeah. Even I was talking because Scott's heading down to the draft after this, and we were talking about the Friday night's obviously the big night, and then Saturday it's 7 to 3.
7 a.m. to 3.
I'm like,
and it's
wow, that
done.
sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
And then
The hangover day.
yeah, I
The
bet.
hangover day. You've covered a draft in person, right?
Yeah.
Which ones?
Just Buffalo. This is my second draft in person.
They're so fun. And
They
I
are.
want to go to every single one of them after I went to the one in Philly.
They're also just for me at least, I work the whole year towards it, and then it's just so exhausting. Especially this year. This year I'm going to be sort of filing across the network. I'm going to be doing a lot of national stuff. I'm not going to be actually be doing Leaf stuff. Jonas is going to be doing the Leafs. So I'm going to be doing a lot of other markets, and it's just going to be like
See, Scott's responsible.
just so many.
That's
well, the worst
why.
part,
No,
you talked
it's
about
the
the
last day
hangover.
of school.
You talked about the hangover, but the NHL gets you because they host for the media the night before on the Friday night. Yep. They host that big dinner with drinks and all of that kind of thing, and it's like, geez, pick your poison.
And every single person in the building on day 2 is slow moving.
Dallas is going to be so hot too. I was looking at the forecast. I think I'm there for 4 days, and it's 40, 39, 39, 39.
And you always drink the local good. What do they got?
And
What kind of bourbons you got?
It's a sticky heat too.
Oh yeah. You enjoy, my friend.
Yeah, have fun wearing a suit. Have fun wearing a suit to the rink.
And and if we don't see you, happy wedding as well.
Yeah, I appreciate
No,
that.
that's coming up soon. So
September.
yeah, that's the crunch time is here. Have fun with that. I don't miss that already, and I just got married a few months ago. But it's like that last 4 months before the wedding is where it starts to really pick up and
You
get
think
crazy.
you've got everything sorted, and then there's all that little shit you have to get done.
Pick this up, do that.
The best part of getting married is getting married. The second best part is not having to get married anymore.
Yeah,
Right.
seriously.
Oh, good.
The planning's over. It's great.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the day of, though.
Yes, that will be fun. That will be fun.
Great.
Make sure you grab some of your own food because I did not. So eat something. Get something.
Eat food before you start drinking.
Absolutely. Scott Wheeler, thanks so much for coming on. Obviously, follow Scott C. Wheeler on Twitter. Check out all his stuff on The Athletic. He just told you he's going to be filing stuff nationally, so you'll be seeing a lot of his articles the day of. Good luck at the draft. Good luck with free agency, and good luck this summer, my friends.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Follow the guys on Twitter at Steve_Dangle, at Adam WYLDE, and at Jesse Blake.
The Steve Dangle Podcast. Brought to you by Panago Pizza. Order at panago.com and stuff your face with deliciousness.